Seeing the dumbfounded look on Leo's face, Claire felt a small surge of triumph. "You little punk. Did you really think you could keep a secret from me?" Little did he know, she'd already gone through back channels. Using her best friend connection with Tessa, she'd first heard from Kevin that Leo was busy helping his family start a business. Then, a quick call to her godmother. That's right, she had successfully acquired Susan's phone number, confirmed the plan to open a bakery. And that's how she'd managed today's surprise appearance. A divine intervention he never saw coming. Claire's strategy was crystal clear now. Since she had decided to launch a full-scale campaign to win over her deskmate, she had to attack on multiple fronts simultaneously. It wasn't enough to just focus on Leo. Conquering his parents was also a masterstroke. A smirk played on her lips. Based on how well she knew Leo's parents from her past life, it would be easy to win their affection again. And now, with her godmother busy with the new shop, what better time for her devoted goddaughter to step up? She'd help with planning, run errands, and be indispensable. Wouldn't that make her already smitten godmother fall head over heels for her? At that point, godmother? No, that would be mother-in-law. Goddaughter? No, she'd be promoted to daughter-in-law. She was already fantasizing about her future with her mother-in-law, a picture of perfect domestic harmony. Leo would be relegated to serving them tea and washing their feet. Claire's inner self was practically giddy with joy. She was so lost in her thoughts that Susan had to call her name twice, a hint of concerned confusion in her voice. "Claire? Claire, what are you smiling about all by yourself, silly girl?" Claire snapped back to reality, her energy instantly returning. "Nothing." She turned to Susan, all business. "Mom, how are the preparations for the shop coming along? Let me take a look. I can give you some ideas." Claire was supremely confident in her ability to help with the new bakery. In her past life, the Ice Queen CEO's corporation had primarily focused on managing shopping malls. She was intimately familiar with every aspect of opening a store, from layout and marketing to product selection. While bakeries weren't her specialty, as someone reborn, her vision and experience from over a decade in the future gave her the unshakable belief that she could easily help Susan turn this small-town bakery into a powerhouse. With her mind made up, Claire was full of ambition and ready to inspect the premises for any issues. However, as she began to look around the newly decorated shop, she discovered something that left her utterly stunned. This bakery, why is it so well designed? In her past life, Claire had seen her share of boutique bakeries and patisseries in her own malls. She had even personally inspected some of them with her subordinates. She had a deep impression of what a truly excellent bakery layout should look like. She had assumed that, given the limited experience in a small town where bakeries were just becoming a trend, and with Susan having no prior experience, the Sweet Return Bakery would be riddled with problems. But the scene before her was practically a textbook example of perfection. The shop wasn't huge, occupying 1.5 storefronts. The overall design wasn't cluttered or ornate, but clean, bright, and airy. Soft track lighting was strategically placed throughout, bathing the interior in a warm, yet stylish glow. Just inside the entrance, transparent display shelves lined both sides, showcasing their contents to passers-by through the large glass windows. The shelves formed an L shape, extending deeper into the store. The prime real estate in the center was occupied by a long, massive island display. Both the shelves and the island were already adorned with exquisite, art-like brass display stands. Small, individual spotlights were positioned next to them, designed to illuminate the products. Once the various baked goods, cookies, and desserts were placed on them, Claire could already imagine how tempting and mouth-watering they would look under such lighting. She subconsciously compared the scene to the best boutique bakeries she had inspected in her past life. The conclusion was undeniable. The Sweet Return Bakery was in no way inferior in its design or layout. In fact, in some of the finer details, it was even superior. For a moment, she was so surprised her mouth fell slightly agape. She turned to Susan. "Mom," she said, her voice filled with disbelief. Did you design all this?" Susan laughed and waved her hand dismissively. "Me? I don't have that kind of talent. It was all Leo's idea. The decor, the brass stands, the spotlights," she said. "He made all the final decisions. The little rascal. I have no idea where he comes up with these crazy ideas." Though her tone was playfully scolding, it was laced with an undeniable pride. Claire froze, then turned to look at Leo, her disbelief even greater. "You came up with this?" Her inner self's mouth formed a perfect, cute little "oh, my deskmate can do this." Leo nodded grandly, the picture of calm confidence. "Yep, just threw a few things together." His tone was impossibly casual. In reality, his inner Q-version self was striking a heroic pose, hands on hips, bursting with pride. It's not every day you get to shock the school beauty. Your boy is on fire. Though he was gloating internally, Leo didn't forget to give his mom instructions. Mom, don't forget what I told you before. The way you display the bread, desserts, and cookies is also important. In the prime spots, you stack the signature items, the ones with the highest profit margins. Pile them high to create a strong visual impact. On the lower shelves, put the cheaper stuff, the things kids like. Little kids are short, so the first thing they'll see is the bottom shelf. And we'll do some marketing for the grand opening. Get some flyers and coupons printed. Hand them out on opening day. Every time a customer brings in a new customer, they can get an even bigger discount on their next coupon. Claire listened from the side, completely dumbfounded. The once omniscient, Ice Queen CEO of a publicly traded company felt her brain short-circuit. Isn't this basically the Groupon model? Who is the one who is actually reborn here? Inside the bakery, Leo was clearly getting into it. Pacing in front of the display shelves, he continued his lecture, words tumbling out in an excited rush. We should also set up a small tasting station by the entrance. Free samples. Put out the freshest, best-looking stuff to catch people's eyes. And the most fragrant items, too, so students and adults can smell it from 2 blocks away. Even the best wine needs good marketing. You have to do whatever it takes to draw people in. Once you get them to take that first free bite, if they like it, they'll naturally come in to look around and start spending. It's a lot more effective than just hanging a sign and waiting. Leo was animated, his eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. Susan Wallace looked a little lost, but Claire, the former CEO, understood the genius and subtlety in his words. Many of his concepts wouldn't be considered novel in a few years, let alone a decade. But here, in 2007, in a small town like Northwood, such a systematic and mature marketing plan was nothing short of revolutionary. It was astounding. Some of the ideas he mentioned, as far as Claire could remember, they wouldn't appear for several years yet. This left her feeling both puzzled and amazed. Her gaze fixed on Leo, and she couldn't help but ask, How did you think of all this? Leo didn't even blink. His face was perfectly straight as he said, I dreamed it. Claire. A giant question mark materialized over her head. The answer sounded completely unreliable. But the more she thought about it, the only explanation was some kind of divine inspiration or a stroke of dumb luck. What other reason could there be? Unless Leo was reborn too. The thought flashed through her mind, and she almost laughed out loud. This wasn't a novel. What were the chances of 2 people being reborn in the same place? Still, watching him so confidently laying out his master plan stirred her competitive spirit. She had come here today ready to impress Susan with her own skills, but before she could even get started, Leo had stolen the show. The feeling was inexplicably irritating. Claire looked at Leo and arched an eyebrow. So you know all this, but can you actually bake? The question jolted Leo. A perfect setup. Someone was actively helping him show off. Of course. A few moments later, in the bakery's kitchen, Claire was speechless again. She watched as Leo moved with the practiced ease of a master baker, effortlessly moving from mixing ingredients to kneading and proofing the dough in one smooth, continuous motion. The girl standing beside him was completely stunned. Her eyes widened with a mix of novelty and disbelief. He really knows how, she thought. I read his diaries from our past life, and there was nothing about this. But as she watched, she started to feel an itch to try it herself. Let me have a go. The school beauty was volunteering. Leo shot her a surprised look, then grinned and handed her a few balls of proof dough. Okay, you can help me cut these into smaller pieces. He went back to his own work, busying himself with other steps. Claire took the dough, looked at the examples Leo had already cut, and picked up a small knife, mimicking his actions. The former CEO had been a master of the boardroom, but in the kitchen, her skill level was 0. It was practically the first time she'd held a knife properly, and her movements were clumsy. While cutting the dough, she couldn't help but steal glances at her deskmate. She watched him move among the baking tools and dough, his actions calm and confident. The profile of his face was handsome and refined, and his methodical work radiated a strangely comforting aura. Claire found herself getting lost in the moment, and in that moment, she forgot about the sharp knife in her hand. A soft cry of pain made Leo whip his head around. He saw Claire wincing, her brow furrowed as she cradled her hand. A thin line of blood was welling up on her finger. You cut yourself? Let me see. Leo rushed over, grabbing her hand. He took one look and frowned. The cut wasn't deep, but it was almost an inch long. Wait here. He quickly turned to a nearby toolbox, rummaging through it until he found disinfectant and a Band-Aid. He returned and carefully cleaned the wound, dabbed it dry with a tissue, and then meticulously applied the Band-Aid. Once finished, Leo let out a sigh of relief, his tense expression softening. There, try not to get it wet for a few days. It should be fine. As he was giving her instructions, he suddenly realized she hadn't said a word. He looked up, confused, only to find her staring at him, completely dazed. That's when it hit him. The distance between them was practically nothing, and he was still tightly holding her hand. To an outsider, the scene would look incredibly intimate and ambiguous. Leo quickly let go of her hand, trying his best to act nonchalant. Well, it's only reasonable for a deskmate to show a little concern, right? A blush crept up Claire's cheeks, but she too tried to mask it with her usual cool demeanor. Right, reasonable. The air suddenly went still. A delicate tension filled the space between them. The two fools were clearly flustered. They both awkwardly looked away, then instinctively snuck a peek at each other. Their eyes met for a split second, and they both panicked, whipping their heads away again. To break the awkward silence, Leo hurried back to the dough. Just, don't move. Watch me work. Claire mumbled a soft, okay. And so, one of them returned to the counter, trying desperately to look focused, while the other sat quietly on a nearby stool, watching him with rapt attention. As Leo kneaded and arranged various colorful batches of dough, combining them together, an unbaked, multicolored cookie dough log began to take shape. Claire leaned in curiously. She instantly recognized the design, and her eyes widened in surprise. Is that a SpongeBob cookie? Leo grinned. You can tell. He used a pastry knife to slice a thin piece off the log, and SpongeBob's cheerful face appeared in perfect detail. To be precise, they're cartoon cookies. For the grand opening, just having a nice design isn't enough to do more than attract some initial curiosity. Leverage both sides? What the hell does that mean? In the women's clothing store, Kevin Zhao sat on a small sofa, his eyes practically spinning. He was completely lost. Leo, man, can you explain that again? I didn't get it. Leo laughed and patiently explained it to his best friend one more time. It's simple, really. If you want to make the cartoon cookies a big hit and get them all over Northwood, we need to leverage the department stores and the small convenience stores. We need them to agree to stock the cookies first. We use their shelf space and their customers to get more people to see the product. But normally, both the big stores and the small shops have their own suppliers and display plans. They won't just accept a strange new product. The Sweet Return Bakery is brand new. It hasn't even opened. We have no leverage to negotiate with them. Kevin nodded along. Right, I get that. So it's impossible then? There's a way, Leo said with a smile. The Sweet Return Bakery doesn't have the clout. But what if we approached the small convenience stores on behalf of the big department store? And what if we approached the big department store on behalf of a whole network of small convenience stores? In the future, this would be a classic arbitrage strategy. It was like this. Say you wanted to have a barbecue in your dorm. You tell roommate A, we're having a barbecue. I got the grill and the burgers. We just need buns. Bring some. Then you tell roommate B, we're having a barbecue. I got the grill and the buns. We just need burgers. Bring some. Finally, you tell roommate C, the burgers and buns are covered. Just bring a portable grill and we're all set. Just like that, you contributed nothing, but you all get to enjoy a great barbecue. The same principle applied to leveraging the department store and the convenience stores. You go to the convenience stores claiming to be a partner of the big department store, telling them you have a new product to pilot in smaller shops. With the department store's name as backing, the small shop owners are more likely to trust you. Then, you turn around and go to the department store, telling them you've already integrated a large network of convenience stores and have your product on their shelves. The department store is then more likely to believe your bakery has the capital and influence to be a worthy partner. This time, Kevin finally got it. He looked at his best friend with pure awe. Holy shit, you can do that? Leo, you're a freaking genius. But after a moment of praise, a thought struck him. Wait a second, what does any of this have to do with getting Claire to wear stockings? Before Leo could answer, a cool, pleasant voice drifted over. It's simple. He needs someone to help him put on a show. The dressing room curtain was pulled aside, and Claire emerged, accompanied by Tessa. She looked completely different from her usual simple, pure style. It was as if she had been totally transformed. She wore a sleek, black pencil skirt and a crisp, white turtleneck, a look that was both elegant and powerful. Below the hem of her form-fitting skirt, her slender legs were wrapped in black stockings, and a pair of black stiletto heels completed the outfit, making her already tall frame look even more statuesque. Her usual ponytail was gone, replaced by a sophisticated updo. With just a touch of light makeup, she exuded a cool, mature confidence. If the girl before was a beautiful and aloof schoolbelle, the woman standing before them now was a stunning and commanding professional. She was breathtakingly, heart-stoppingly beautiful. Even Leo was hit with a jolt, his mind going blank for a second as he saw her walk out. This version of Clare was at least 80% similar to the stunningly beautiful woman he had seen 16 years in the future. Kevin was just plain floored. Holy, is that Clare? He squinted dramatically. Excuse me, miss, could you move? You're blocking my view of the goddess. Ow, ow, ow. He was cut short as an infuriated Tessa grabbed his ear and dragged him aside for a stern talking to. He had well and truly asked for it. The commotion, however, gave Leo a moment to regain his composure. He turned to Kevin and Tessa to explain. Whether we're talking to the department store or the convenience stores, we need a convincing identity. Otherwise, they won't buy what we're selling. Kevin looked at Leo, confused. So your identity is... Tessa leaned in, her expression curious. Leo smiled, stood up, and straightened his collar. He announced calmly, am the regional channel development lead for a Portland-based gourmet food brand, overseeing market penetration in smaller towns. Tessa and Kevin stared dumbfounded. Leo casually walked over to Clare and pulled a pair of black-framed glasses from his pocket, handing them to her. And this, he said, is my secretary. Clare gracefully took the glasses and put them on. The frames added an extra layer of electrifying charm to her cool, professional look. Kevin looked from Leo to Clare, his jaw practically on the floor. Holy shit, cosplay? You guys are. You're into some wild stuff. Tessa couldn't help but lean in and whisper to her best friend. Clare, you actually agreed to this? Clare's expression was serene. Deskmates helping each other out. It's perfectly reasonable. Besides, she added, a slight curve to her lips, it's also fun, isn't it? As someone who had been reborn, Leo didn't go into battles unprepared. With everything in place, he changed into a well-fitting suit. Accompanied by his beautiful secretary, he walked into the small convenience stores of their town. He spoke to the owners with politeness and poise. The young man's calm and articulate manner far exceeded his apparent age. He had prepared documents and materials in hand, and behind him stood a stunningly cool and elegant woman, a secretary whose aura made it clear she was not from a small town like Northwood. The sharp but simple shop owners were immediately 70% convinced. These two are definitely a big deal. Besides, the stocking and display rules for small convenience stores weren't that strict. Looking at the fun and novel cartoon cookies, the owners could see their potential. They had nothing to lose. So, they all readily agreed to purchase a small quantity and place them in prime display locations. Mission 1 complete. Next up was Mission 2, Northwood County's largest chain supermarket, Omnimart. If you want to hide a truth, create a fake truth and let your opponent discover it. Once they feel the satisfaction of having exposed a lie, they'll relax and won't dig any deeper. Leo knew that the manager of Omnimart wouldn't be as easy to fool as he appeared. He also knew that the documents and photos he'd prepared weren't enough. So, he made himself the most obvious flaw in the plan, deliberately exposing his own youth. To others, no matter how poised he acted, he was still just an 18-year-old kid. But Clare was different. She had a natural aura of authority. Dressed as a professional with a touch of makeup, no one would believe she was just a recent high school graduate. She had transformed into a cool, dignified, and mysterious figure. It worked. Mr. Peterson, the manager, had clearly bought it. The moment the cool, beautiful woman who had been pretending to be a secretary revealed her true identity, Mr. Peterson became incredibly attentive. He scrambled to his feet to shake Clare's hand. The rest of their negotiation was smooth sailing. He agreed to the partnership without hesitation. It wasn't just that the woman before him had an intimidating aura that hinted at a powerful background. For Omnimart, a small project like this was no risk at all. Even if it was just to do a favor and network with a powerful person, it was a win. Throughout the entire meeting, Leo, the younger brother, just stood by and watched. He saw Clare smiling faintly, her bearing elegant and calm, as she chatted with the balding, middle-aged manager, subtly controlling the conversation. He couldn't help but marvel. Clare's presence is really something else. It's just innate. For a fleeting moment, he almost thought she had been reborn, too. With the deal sealed, Clare left behind a batch of sample cookies and stood up to leave. Mr. Peterson enthusiastically escorted them all the way to the store entrance, earnestly calling out, "Take care, Ms. Sterling." As he watched them leave, an employee came over. "Mr. Peterson, you just agreed? What if they're scammers?" A smirk played on the manager's lips. "Scammers or not, you think I can't tell? That Ms. Sterling's aura isn't something you can fake." Sitting across from her made my heart pound. You don't get that kind of presence unless you're used to addressing hundreds of people in meetings. Besides, I looked at those cartoon cookies. They're a good product. It'll be a nice addition to our bakery section. It's a no-lose deal, so even if it's just doing a favor, it's a bonus for us. The old hand had his own way of weighing risks and rewards. The employee's eyes lit up as he laid on the flattery. You're incredible, Mr. Peterson. That kind of insight is amazing. The manager beamed. Of course. She was even testing me, putting that student in front while she observed from the side. Good thing I saw right through it. I bet I made a good impression on Ms. Sterling. The employee got curious. So that guy, was he really her brother? Mr. Peterson let out a knowing chuckle, a sly smile only middle-aged men understood. She says he's her brother, but who knows? Maybe he's the young lover she's taken a liking to. The employee's eyes widened again, followed by more frantic flattery. Mr. Peterson, brilliant. The manager laughed heartily and turned away, full of swagger. Watch and learn. Your big brother Peterson has a few tricks you can study for a long time. Holy shit, you guys actually pulled it off? Back at the bakery, Kevin's jaw was on the floor. He looked at Leo and Claire as if they were gods. Leo, you and Claire are like a pair of world-class con artists. Tessa playfully smacked her boyfriend. What do you mean, con artists? Power couple sounds much better. As she said the last two words, she shot a meaningful, smiling glance at them. Claire's expression remained placid. It was nothing. It was Leo's idea. I just played along. Beside her, Leo was the picture of righteousness. Not at all. It was a team effort. My deskmate and I worked together perfectly. We split the credit 50-50. Kevin nodded sagely. I think Claire deserves more of the credit. I mean, that outfit. The stockings, the skirt, the heels. Who wouldn't be mesmerized? Total knockout. The next second, his girlfriend had him by the ear. Oh, really? So you're just staring at Claire's legs the whole time, were you? Kevin yelped in pain as he was dragged away by his ear. The bakery was suddenly quiet, with just Leo and Claire remaining. Kevin wasn't wrong. A huge part of their success was due to her. Leo looked at her and offered a sincere thank you. You worked hard today. Claire nodded, her expression unchanged, but the corners of her lips lifted slightly. So how are you going to thank me? Leo, question mark. Wow, she's gotten really good at that line. He scratched his head, resigned to his fate. How do you want me to thank you? Claire tilted her head as if thinking, then said casually, I haven't decided yet. You can owe me another favor. Leo, that makes 3 now. I haven't even fulfilled the first 2, and the debt is just piling up. At this rate, am I going to have to sell my body to pay it off? He grumbled internally. Just then, he noticed Claire frowning, looking uncomfortable from wearing the high heels for so long. She braced a hand against the wall, bent one leg slightly, and reached down to slip off one of her black stilettos. Her stocking-clad heel was smooth and shapely as she lifted it. 2 long, slender fingers hooked the back of the shoe and slid it off. Leo, that single glance sent his heart rate skyrocketing to 180. Is this something you can see without a premium subscription? He never would have imagined that Claire, dressed in her professional attire with stockings and heels, could be so devastatingly potent. Such a simple, casual movement had nearly made his heart stop. He quickly looked away, then stole another peek to make sure she hadn't noticed. He let out a silent sigh of relief. Phew, that was close. It wasn't just anything. It was because he remembered that awkward, charged moment in his bedroom. She had been bold enough then to look him in the eye and ask, "Want to try?" If she had caught him staring just now, Leo had no doubt she would have coolly extended her leg and nonchalantly asked again, "Want to try?" The mere thought of it sent a shiver down his spine. Holy crap, that's terrifying. What kind of decent person tests a friendship like that? 2 days later, the Sweet Return Bakery officially opened. The marketing and promotional efforts of the past few days paid off enormously. As soon as the cartoon cookies hit the shelves at convenience stores and Omnimart, they became an instant sensation among kids, parents, and students. They sold out in just 2 days. With demand far outstripping supply, the Sweet Return Baker name on the packaging became impossible to ignore. On opening day, the bakery already had a built-in fan base. Combined with its unique and stylish decor, simple yet elegant, it also attracted a flood of curious passersby. Customers poured in, their eyes immediately drawn to the perfectly arranged displays of bread and cakes. Bathed in the soft glow of the many spotlights and presented on the exquisite brass stands, each loaf, pastry, and cake seemed to shimmer with an irresistible luster. The residents of the small town had never seen anything so sophisticated. It was a complete game changer. They went wild. A frantic buying spree ensued, leaving the 3 bakers Susan had hired and the 2 cashiers completely overwhelmed. But they were also thrilled, sweating and smiling as they worked tirelessly. Leo and Claire, the masterminds behind it all, stood to the side, watching the roaring success. For Claire, who had built and managed world-class shopping malls in her past life, a scene like this was normally no big deal. But in this life, in a small town like Northwood, watching him achieve such astonishing results with methods so far ahead of their time, she couldn't help but feel a tremor of shock and disbelief. Her gaze drifted to the boy beside her. A thought popped in her head that made her chuckle. The title of Reborn. It seems to fit my deskmate much better. Leo noticed her looking at him and assumed his genius had finally delivered the shock of the future he was aiming for. Feeling smug, he raised an eyebrow. So, are you thinking your deskmate is pretty amazing? He was fully expecting a compliment. Instead, she tilted her head, her tone as breezy as ever. Nope, I was just thinking a couple of days ago when I was taking off my heels, were you secretly watching? Thump! Leo lost his footing and tumbled right off the front step of the shop. That evening at the dinner table, Susan Wallace was excitedly telling her husband all about the bakery's incredible popularity and revenue. Robert Wallace listened, his jaw dropping. He couldn't believe it. After a lifetime of working for others in a factory, his wife's first brave venture in a business seemed poised to completely change their family's fortunes overnight. Susan's eyes danced with joy. At this rate, even if sales dip a little, as long as we stabilize, 1 month's income will be more than what I made in 3 or even 5 years at the factory. Not only can we renovate the house, but when Leo goes to Berkeley, we might even be able to save up for a down payment on an apartment for him. Listening to his wife's cheerful planning, Robert started dreaming of their bright future right alongside her. Only Leo seemed distracted. His mind kept replaying the scene at the bakery. When he'd pulled himself together and vehemently denied peeking, the girl beside him had just given him a cool glance and said nonchalantly, "So what if you were? Consider it a deskmate perk. Next time you want to look, just ask." She had paused, then casually lifted her leg a little, turning to him with an inquisitive look. "Want to look now?" His thoughts snapped back to the present. He looked up to see his parents staring at him, puzzled. "Leo, what are you spacing out for? Your eyes are shaking like there's an earthquake." His mother peered at him, her expression one of pure amazement. "Oh, you're doing the exact same thing as Claire's driver, mister. Show." That same night, Claire was lounging on the sofa in her living room, propped up by pillows. Her dark hair cascaded over her shoulders like a waterfall. She was wearing a floral print nightgown, her long, slender legs crossed comfortably on the coffee table. She thought about her conversation with Leo at the bakery, especially the dumbfounded, deer-in-the-headlights look on his face. The smile on her lips refused to fade. Then she thought about the words she'd used to tease him, and a flicker of interest sparked within her. Her gaze fell to her own legs. They were indeed breathtakingly long. She had elegant arches, delicate feet, and fair, soft toes. For the first time, she found herself studying a part of her own body with genuine curiosity. Do boys really like this? She pouted slightly. What a strange hobby. They're just feet. Why can't they stop themselves from sneaking a look? If he likes looking so much, next time I'll prop them right up on his face and let him look his fill. Claire giggled at her own mischievous idea, but then another thought made her frown. Or was it because she had been wearing heels and stockings? It seemed boys had a strange and specific aesthetic for that sort of thing. Maybe I should ask mister. Till next time, she muttered to herself, slightly perplexed. She didn't have many other male subjects to survey. Just then, the stoic, middle-aged veteran returned from his evening walk around the neighborhood. As he passed through the living room, he happened to overhear her quiet musing. The steady man was slightly surprised. His young employer, who was always so decisive and flawless in her dealings, was actually feeling confused about something. A moment later, a gratified smile appeared on his face. "Ms. Sterling is facing a dilemma, and the first person she thinks of is me, the driver who's been with her for years." I'm truly touched. A wave of responsibility washed over him. He puffed out his chest, ready to approach her with his most reassuring smile and offer his guidance. But in the next second, he heard another soft mumble from the sofa. "Are black stockings really that important to men?" His foot, which was about to step forward, froze mid-air. His entire body went rigid. Then, the man named Joe retreated from the living room, his eyes wide with terror. "That's a loaded question. I can't answer that." Time flowed by silently. In mid-July, acceptance letters from universities began arriving in mailboxes across the country, delivered into the hands of recent high school graduates. Tessa and Kevin had already received their letters from Portland Tech and Portland State University. By late July, 2 letters from the University of California, Berkeley, arrived for Leo and Clare. The countdown to a new life in college had quietly begun. Along with the acceptance letters came the dates for freshman orientation. Tessa's at Portland Tech was August 27th, and Kevin's at Portland State was the 29th, only 2 days apart. Kevin planned to go up with his girlfriend early to get the lay of the land and, more importantly, to act as her personal porter. He had to make an appearance in front of all the other freshmen at her school to stake his claim. This beautiful flower is taken. Don't even think about it, you vultures. Leo and Claire's orientation at Berkeley was even earlier, August 17th. This meant they would have to say goodbye to their friends and embark on their college journey ahead of everyone else. Both Tessa and Kevin were bummed. You guys have to leave so soon? We were hoping to spend the Star Festival with you. In 2007, the Star Festival fell on August 19th. Leo and Clare would be long gone by then. In response to this, Leo put on a righteous front. What does the Star Festival have to do with us? You two can just celebrate it by yourselves. But when Clare heard it, her eyes lit up with a thoughtful glimmer. The Star Festival. Regardless, with the acceptance letters and orientation dates confirmed, the 4 friends' summer of hanging out was officially winding down. As the day of their separation drew closer, they didn't say much, but they cherished their remaining time together even more. They met up frequently, exploring every nook and cranny of Northwood, hitting up all the best food spots and shops one last time. Occasionally, they would drop by the Sweet Return Bakery to help with the increasingly busy shop. The 2 girls would work the front counter, handling sales and customer service. Clare was already the universally acknowledged beauty of Northwood High, with a cool, radiant elegance. Tessa was no slouch either, a top-tier beauty in her own right. Dressed in the bakery's uniforms with aprons tied around their waists, their sweet smiles sent the number of male customers through the roof. Leo and Kevin, meanwhile, were relegated to manual labor in the kitchen, helping the bakers knead dough and bake until they were drenched in sweat. During their short breaks, they'd watch the girls charmingly greet customers at the front. Men of all ages, young and old, were completely captivated by their smiles, mindlessly buying enough bread and cookies to last until New Year's, casting reluctant glances back as they left. Kevin watched, indignant. Look at them. Men. He turned to Leo, his tone dead serious. Leo, man, you gotta be careful when you get to college. Keep a close eye on Clare. If some other dog steals her away, you'll be crying your eyes out. Leo took a sip of water, his expression perfectly calm. We just have a pure, platonic deskmate relationship. I have no idea what you're talking about. Kevin, right? Keep telling yourself that. Let's see how long you can keep it up. As he was thinking this, his eyes drifted over to Clare at the counter. A thought suddenly struck him, and his energy returned. He sidled up to Leo, whispering conspiratorially, Dude, have you noticed? Ever since Clare did that cosplay thing for you, she's been changing up her style, especially her socks. One day it's over the knee, the next it's slouch socks, then black stockings, then white ones. It's insane. You think she's doing it for you? Leo nearly choked on his water. He struggled to maintain his composure. I have no idea what you're talking about. It's just a coincidence. Though he said it calmly, his eyes instinctively flickered towards Clare. Standing behind the register in her uniform and apron, a section of her long, slender legs was visible below the hem of her skirt. Today, she was wearing a pair of brown leather loafers. Above the top of the shoes, a sliver of her fair, delicate ankle was visible, along with the lacy white edge of a sock. Leo, his pupils contracted violently. Siren. On the other side of the counter, Clare was chatting with Tessa, who had also noticed her friend's recent, frequent style changes and asked about it. Clare's reply was nonchalant. Oh, it's nothing. Just running an experiment. Controlling the variables. A question mark appeared over Tessa's head. An experiment? What kind of experiment? A controlled variable test on the attraction and lethality of different sock styles on my deskmate. On the surface, Clare remained perfectly serene, but her inner self was now a dedicated scientist in a white lab coat, staring intently at a long lineup of different women's socks. The former CEO of a provincial corporate giant, a queen of the business world, was defined by one word: rigor. Practice is the sole criterion for truth. She would meticulously find the most effective weapon, and then she would go in for the kill. By early August, the day of Leo and Clare's departure for Berkeley was fast approaching. A few days before they were set to leave, Kevin suggested one last hurrah, an overnight camping trip on Mount Jade. The other 3 readily agreed. On the day of the trip, they met at the designated spot. Leo and Kevin were loaded down with camping gear and tents. But the girls were also carrying large bags, looking just as weighed down as the boys. Leo and Kevin were baffled. They were carrying all the essentials. What else could the two of them possibly have? Tessa ticked off items on her fingers, dead serious. Snacks, wet wipes, disposable tablecloths, a ground mat, tissues, lipstick, face cream, makeup remover. A girl has a lot to prepare. Leo's expression soured. He glanced at Claire. You too. Claire looked serene. I have one more thing than Tessa. Leo was puzzled. One more thing. She shot him a breezy look, her lips parting to utter a single word. Socks. Leo. He managed a steady, oh, and calmly turn away. Out of everyone's line of sight, his pupils began to violently quake once more. Siren. Was it reasonable to bring socks on a camping trip? Of course. But it really depended on what kind of socks you brought. What kind of decent person brings those kind of socks camping? Leo's inner self roared, slamming its tiny fists on a table. Of course, he only dared to scream on the inside. Looking at Claire's back as she got into the car, he felt a helpless headache coming on. Lately, he felt like he was losing his ability to withstand her attacks. If this kept up, his unshakable focus was going to be a problem. More importantly, he knew she was doing this to provoke him, but he couldn't deny that he was a little curious. In fact, looking at the backpack she was carrying, only one thought circled endlessly in his mind. So what style of socks did she actually bring? After a bus ride, they arrived at the foot of Mount Jade. The four of them, loaded with bags and gear, started up the stone path. The town of Northwood was named for its location south of the mountain. The air was fresh and cool, the trees lush and green. A deep breath felt like an infusion of pure oxygen. Half an hour later, slightly winded and sweating, they reached their destination, a clearing in the woods halfway up the mountain. They dropped their bags, and Kevin immediately took charge. Leo and I will set up the tents. Tessa and Claire, go find some firewood. We'll get a fire going and start making food. The group split up. They had brought 2 tents, and Leo and Kevin each started assembling one. In his past life, after he started working, Leo had been on outdoor trips with colleagues and had camping experience, so setting up the tent was second nature to him. Kevin, on the other hand, initially boasted he didn't need the instructions. After a chaotic struggle, he made a mess of it. By the time Claire and Tessa returned with armfuls of dry branches, Leo's tent was already up. Kevin's was still a shapeless, collapsed heap on the ground. And you call yourself an outdoor expert? Tessa scoffed at her boyfriend before turning to praise Leo. Wow, Leo, you set that up so fast. Have you been camping before? Leo just smiled and waved it off. Nah, it was only later that He stopped mid-sentence, realizing his slip-up. Seeing the confused looks from the others, he thought fast and broke into song. What hurts the most was being so close. He delivered the impromptu Rascal Flatts lyric with heartfelt passion. The other 3 stared at him, bewildered. Leo kept a straight face. Oh, nothing. Just felt like singing. After finishing his tent, Leo went over to help Kevin with his. While they worked together, the girls had gathered plenty of firewood. Some of the thicker logs needed to be split with the small axe they'd brought. Tessa tried a few times, but either missed or didn't have the strength to split the wood. Kevin saw her struggling and gallantly offered, Tessa, leave it. I'll do it after I finish the tent. But then Claire's voice cut in. No need. I'll do it. She walked over, picked up the axe, and took a stance, her form textbook perfect. Taking a shallow breath, she narrowed her eyes, raised the axe, and brought it down with swift precision. Crack! The log split cleanly in 2. Kevin's eyes widened. Holy crap! Then came the second piece, the third, the fourth. Claire chopped wood with the grace of a flowing river, her movements crisp and efficient. In no time, she had split all the wood into smaller pieces, creating a neat pile. She wasn't even out of breath, as if she'd just completed the simplest of tasks. Kevin was stunned. Claire, you can do that. Leo, too, looked at her with a hint of surprise. Claire just smiled. In her past life, she was also an outdoor enthusiast and a professional one at that. She had gone solo hiking and camping countless times. While she was clumsy with a knife in the kitchen, setting up tents and chopping firewood were child's play. Tessa looked at her best friend, incredulous. Claire, I never knew you could do this stuff. Claire shook her head naturally. I couldn't before. It was only later that She stopped, her body freezing as she realized she'd almost slipped up again. She immediately changed her tune, singing and having so much to say and watching you walk away. Leo, Kevin, and Tessa. Claire forced herself to remain calm. Oh, I just think that song is really good, too. Kevin and Tessa looked suspiciously from Claire to Leo. You two are really in sync. Leo and Claire glanced at each other, both feeling a pang of guilt. Ah, yeah, well, it's only reasonable for deskmates to be in sync, right? Meanwhile, their inner Q version selves were both clutching their chests, sighing with relief. Phew, that was close. Almost exposed myself as being reborn. With the tents up and the wood chopped, it was time to eat. For convenience, they had prepared the ingredients in advance. Corn and sweet potatoes for roasting, a few packets of instant noodles, and some pre-made skewers from a shop. Leo built 2 simple fire pits with rocks, stuffed them with wood, and lit them. Kevin stood by, offering expert commentary. You know, using a friction drill to start the fire would be more authentic. A lighter just cheapens the experience. Leo shot him a sideways glance. Then you can eat experience later. We'll be having barbecue. On one fire, they set a small pot to boil the noodles. On the other, they placed a grill, laying out the skewers, brushing them with oil, and slowly turning them over the embers. Leo also tossed a few sweet potatoes and potatoes directly into the coals. In no time, the noodles were ready and the skewers were cooked. They dished out the ramen into small bowls and grabbed a few skewers each. It might not have been as good as what you get in a restaurant, but out here it was delicious. The potatoes took a bit longer. By the time they finished the noodles and skewers, they were done. Leo used a stick to pull them out of the fire. Kevin, ever impatient, grabbed a few. The heat made him hiss, juggling the hot potatoes like a circus performer. Once they had cooled a bit, Leo handed one to Clare. Try it. She took it, her slender fingers carefully peeling back the charred skin. She took a small bite. The inside was sweet and soft. She closed her eyes slightly, a look of pure enjoyment on her face. Not bad, but because the potato skin was blackened, a little smudge of ash had gotten on the corner of her mouth. You've got something on your face, Leo told her. Clare raised an eyebrow, seemingly unaware. Leo pointed. She still didn't get it, trying to wipe it herself, but missing the spot. Finally, Leo gave up, grabbed a wet wipe, and reached over to gently clean the smudge from her mouth. Right here. Got it. Clare finally seemed to understand. She nodded at him, her voice cool. Thanks. Unseen by him, the corners of her lips curved upward. At the same time, her inner self was grinning like a sly little fox. 100 clever tricks for interacting with your deskmate. Trick number 3. Too easy. After their self-made lunch, they tidied up and temporarily put out the fire. Tessa suggested they hike a bit further up the mountain. Everyone agreed. They left the campsite and continued up the stone path. After a while, the stairs disappeared, and the trail became steep and slippery. Clare glanced at Leo. Without a word, she held out her small, fair hand. Having learned his lesson at Beacon Hill Park, Leo knew exactly what to do. He took her hand, and they continued their ascent together. Tessa, trailing behind, watched them with a touch of envy. She looked at her own boyfriend and said in a sweet voice, Kevin, the path is getting a little steep. Her boyfriend's response was full of confidence. No problem. I'm a beast at hiking. Watch this, honey. With that, he bounded up the trail, covering a huge distance in seconds. He then turned back and waved enthusiastically. Come on, honey. Don't fall behind. Tessa. She suddenly felt the urge to trade him in for a new model. Mount Jade wasn't particularly high. It only took them about 20 minutes to get from the halfway point to the summit. But looking out from the top still filled them with a sense of awe. In the distance lay the whole of Northwood, the hometown that had raised them for 18 years. At the summit, Kevin took a deep breath and let out a triumphant shout that echoed through the hills. Tessa followed suit, cupping her hand around her mouth and yelling just as loudly. Afterward, she felt her spirits soar. Leo watched them, smiling, a similar sense of nostalgia washing over him. But when his gaze fell upon Clare, he noticed she was staring off into the distance, lost in thought. Soon, they started back down. The mood was light, full of laughter, but Leo noticed Clare seemed distracted, her mind elsewhere. Every so often, she would glance back toward the summit. By the time they returned to the campsite, dusk was falling. They rekindled the campfire and started preparing dinner. More noodles, skewers, potatoes, and beer. The food wasn't fancy, but the atmosphere was cheerful and full. Later, Kevin somehow produced a bottle of cheap vodka. One moment, he was heroically raising his glass. To our friendship, I'll down this whole thing. And the next, he was passed out on Tessa's lap, mumbling incoherently. The other 3 didn't know whether to laugh or be annoyed. After dinner, Leo managed to haul his friend into a tent. Tessa, worried, went to take care of him. With the couple in the tent, Leo felt like a third wheel. He stepped outside and saw Clare standing up from the campfire. She turned to him. Leo, come with me to the summit again. Her expression was calm, betraying no emotion. Leo hesitated for a second, then nodded. Okay. Climbing the mountain at night was harder. The path was dark and hard to see. Leo held Claire's hand, carefully guiding them up. They didn't speak much. For some reason, he sensed a strange sadness emanating from her. Finally, they climbed the last slope and pushed aside a final branch. The summit opened up before them. There was no moon, no wind, no clouds. Above them stretched a vast ocean of stars, a silent, magnificent river of light. Just looking at it brought a sense of peace. Then, her clear, pleasant voice broke the silence. When I was little, my mom brought me up Mount Jade, too. Leo froze. He looked over and saw that she had let go of his hand and walked a few steps ahead. Her back was to him as she stared up at the night sky. Bathed in the immense starlight, her slender figure looked cool and fragile. Her voice was calm, tinged with memory. I was only 5. All I remember is that the mountains seemed so high and the steps were so steep. But holding my mom's hand felt so safe, so warm. We stayed on the summit until it was very late, until there were this many stars in the sky. She told me that soon she would become one of those stars, and that later, if I ever missed her so much I was about to cry, I should just look up. The sky was a river of stars, a crystalline galaxy pouring down from above. On the summit of Mount Jade, bathed in the pale starlight, the girl's figure looked slender and fragile. She tried to maintain her cool expression, meeting Leo's gaze without flinching. Even now, when what she wanted was comfort, she pretended it was just a simple request, as if she were merely asking him to fulfill a promise. Leo's gaze softened. Perhaps, in this moment, he was seeing the real Clare, the person hidden beneath the icy surface. Even the proudest people have a soft, vulnerable spot they keep hidden. The prouder they are, the more reluctant they are to show that weakness to anyone. And yet, she had said those words to him. Even if she was pretending to be calm, she was like a stubborn little animal, trembling and uncertain, yet still baring her soft underbelly to him without reservation. It was a profound gesture of trust. And for him, Leo Wallace, how lucky am I? Without a word, he walked up to her, opened his arms, and gently pulled her into a hug. She felt soft and warm in his embrace, and he could smell the faint, clean scent of her hair. There was nothing romantic in his heart at that moment, just a quiet need to hold her. Claire's slender body stiffened at the warmth of his hug, then slowly relaxed. She wrapped her own arms around his back, pulling him a little tighter, as if trying to absorb all the warmth radiating from him. Under the brilliant starlight, the boy and girl stood in a quiet embrace. The stars, hundreds of thousands of light years away, seemed to bear witness to the sacred moment. It was a scene reminiscent of their time on the roof of the admin building, not romantic but warm and timeless. Time itself seemed to stop, freezing their embrace into an eternal memory. After a long while, Leo felt her body relax completely, her mood seeming to stabilize. He looked up at the stars and suddenly said, "I'm a wicked good star counter. Next time, I'll help you find her." Was he joking? Hell no. His 3 years of training at the school observatory weren't for nothing. One night, one person, one breath, he counted 382 stars in a row. Codename 1-1-1-382. Street name, the Star Emperor. His words made Claire let out a soft laugh. But after laughing, she hugged him even tighter, burying her face in his shoulder. "Thank you," she whispered. It was a simple phrase, but it carried a gentle, melodic weight that could make a person's heart flutter. Leo smiled. "You're welcome." Feeling that her mood had improved, he started to loosen his arms. But as he tried to pull away, he felt her grip tighten. "Leo, I still have 2 favors left, right?" Leo paused, then nodded gently. "Yeah, then I'm using another one." "Okay, my second condition is that you promise me 3 more conditions." "Okay, wait, what?" Without another moment's hesitation, he let go of her. "Woman, thy name is Greed." The next day, on the bus ride home from Mount Jade, Kevin was clutching his head, groaning. "Ugh, I feel awful, so awful." Tessa, sitting next to him, shot him a look. "Serves you right for showing off. You regret it now, don't you?" "I swear," he moaned, "I'm never drinking cheap vodka again." He opened the window for some fresh air and slumped in his seat. After a few minutes, he recovered enough to lean conspiratorially toward Leo. "Dude, I heard you and Claire went back up to the summit last night. So, did you make your move?" Leo just looked at his friend. All this kid thinks about is making a move. He should change his name to Kevin Make a Move Zhao. "We just want to look at the stars." Kevin's eyes widened. "Whoa, that's so romantic. Confessing under the stars. That's like the perfect setup." Hearing his friend's words, Leo couldn't help but think back to the night before. He remembered Claire's stunning beauty under the vast starlight and the soft, fragrant warmth of their embrace. His heart skipped a beat. Yeah, it was pretty romantic. Time slipped by. Suddenly, it was August 14th. The next day, Leo and Claire would be leaving for Berkeley. That night, the four of them had one last dinner together. Kevin, breaking his vow, opened another bottle of vodka. Half an hour later, he was a drunken mess again, clinging to Leo and sobbing. Leo, I'm gonna miss you, man. Don't forget about me when you're at college. And you have to, absolutely have to, win Claire over for good. Before he could finish, Tessa dragged him away to sober up. After dealing with her boyfriend, Tessa returned to the table. She poured herself a full glass of wine, raised it to Leo and Claire, and smiled. Goodbyes are temporary, but friendship is forever. This is to wish you both a safe journey. We'll see you at winter break. August 15th. At the Wallace house, Robert and Susan were up at the crack of dawn, bustling around to help Leo pack. They had originally insisted on taking him to Berkeley themselves. But with both of them busy with work, especially with the new bakery being so successful, Susan simply couldn't get away. Plus, when they heard their son was traveling with their goddaughter, their entire attitude changed. Young people should travel together, they declared, suddenly enlightened. It's enough for you two to go. If the old folks tag along, it would just be inconvenient. Their change of heart was instantaneous. Leo eyed his parents suspiciously. He had a feeling they were up to something. And what do they mean by inconvenient? It doesn't mean anything, his mother said, her face perfectly straight. It just means that you and Claire are good classmates, good deskmates. It's fitting for you to travel together. If your father and I came along, we might get in the way of you two. Bonding. Right, dear? His father nodded without hesitation. Your mother is right. They had arranged it beforehand. In the afternoon, Claire would come by to pick Leo up and go to the train station together. Leo carried his luggage downstairs with his parents. The familiar black Maybach was already waiting outside. Mr. Joe was finally recovered and back on duty. Leo's parents greeted him warmly. The kind-hearted Susan even offered to recommend a doctor she knew, earnestly telling him that even small problems shouldn't be ignored. The stoic Mr. Joe's mouth twitched, and he thanked her with a complicated expression. Then, Robert and Susan took Claire's hands, fussing over her. Be careful on the road, okay? Stay safe. If you need anything on the train, any heavy lifting, just make Leo do it. If you run into any bad people, just push Leo at them. He can buy you some time. Leo, are these my real parents? Who's the biological child here? In front of his parents, Claire was the picture of a sweet, obedient girl. She smiled and nodded. Don't worry, Mom. I'll take good care of Leo. As she said the words, take care, she shot a subtle, deliberate glance at him, putting a slight emphasis on the phrase. Leo, ? He had no idea that someone else was even more shocked. Mr. Joe. What's going on? Ms. Sterling is already calling them. Mom and Dad. A tidal wave of shock crashed through the veteran driver's heart. Susan happened to look over at that moment and gasped. Oh my, Mr. Joe, your eye is twitching again. This must be serious. You have to see the doctor I recommended. Before they got in the car, Leo's parents pulled him aside. His mom discreetly slipped a bank card into his hand. This has your tuition and your living expenses for the semester, she whispered. We had originally budgeted $800 a month, but your dad and I talked it over last night and added a bit more. It's $1,500 a month now. When you're out on your own, don't skimp on food or clothes. Your parents have money now. As she said this, a rare look of pride crossed her face. His dad nodded enthusiastically beside her. That's right. Don't be too frugal. Your mom's rich now. Seeing his parents like this, so overjoyed at being able to give him a little more, touched a soft spot in Leo's heart. His nose tingled, and he smiled as he was about to accept. But in the next second, their tone shifted. They glanced furtively at Claire and lowered their voices again. And one more thing. Take care of Claire when you're out there. When you're with a girl, a man has to be generous, understand? Spend what you need to spend. If you run out, just ask us for more. The train station wasn't far, about a 20-minute drive. In the car, Leo made small talk with Mr. Joe. Aren't you coming with us, Mr. Joe? He asked curiously. As the family's dedicated driver, he had chauffeured Claire to and from school for 3 years. Leo had assumed he would follow her to Berkeley. Claire, sitting beside him, answered for him in a calm, casual tone. Mr. Joe is coming. He just has some things to take care of these next couple of days, so he's not on the same train as us. In the driver's seat, Mr. Joe's hands tightened on the steering wheel. He nodded stiffly. That's right. I have some business to attend to. The middle-aged veteran sighed internally. Working for Ms. Sterling is really improving my ability to lie with a straight face. They soon arrived at the station. Leo and Claire got out and retrieved their luggage from the trunk. Leo was traveling light. From experience, he knew it was easier to buy most things at the campus store. In contrast, the luggage mister Joe helped pull from the trunk for Claire was a mountain of bags. Clothes, makeup, shoes, books, and my own sheets, pillowcases, and the stuffed animal I always sleep with, Claire listed off with practiced ease. Girls really did bring a lot when they traveled. Mr. Joe smiled and explained, Ms. Sterling is a light sleeper and has trouble with unfamiliar beds, so she brings all this with her. As he said this, he felt a wave of sentimentality. As the family driver, he and the housekeeper, Mrs. Fong, were the two people closest to Claire. He had watched her grow up into this outstanding young woman, and now she was going to college. It filled him with the pride of a father watching his daughter come of age. Leo nodded in understanding. He noticed another small package and picked it up. It was very light. Are these the sheets or pillowcases? Mr. Joe looked over, curious. He remembered packing those in another bag. Claire glanced at the package, her reply succinct. That's just some stockings. The air went still. Leo calmly put the package back down. Oh, I see. Mr. Joe nodded gravely, his response nonsensical. It's always good to have some on hand. The two men, one young and one old, silently turned away from each other, their pupils quaking in perfect, synchronized terror. After saying goodbye to Mr. Joe, Leo, and Claire boarded the train. In 2007, high-speed rail hadn't been built yet. The trip from Northwood to their destination would be an overnight journey of more than 10 hours. They had booked sleeper berths. Hauling their luggage through the narrow corridor, they found their compartment. It had 2 sets of bunk beds, meaning they would be sharing with 2 other passengers. After stowing their luggage, Leo told Claire he was going to the restroom. When he came back, he saw her buying water from a snack cart just outside their compartment. She turned and saw him. The other 2 passengers in our compartment are here, she said. They're a couple too. Leo's head snapped up, his eyes wide. Claire's expression was perfectly innocent. What 2? Did I say 2? You must have misheard me. When they got back to their compartment, they found that a couple had indeed moved in. They looked to be in their early 20s, fresh out of college, and just starting their careers. The guy wore glasses and had a calm, scholarly air about him. The girl was fair-skinned with striking features, chatting and laughing with him, her personality clearly open and extroverted. The compartment had 2 sets of bunk beds, one on each side, and was co-ed. Leo and Claire were on the left, against the wall, while the new couple took the bunks on the right. Right now, they were sitting side by side on the bottom bunk, talking quietly. When they saw Claire enter, followed by a guy, they immediately stood up and offered a warm, polite greeting. Leo and the guy introduced themselves. The man's name was Brandon, and the woman was Michelle. They were both working at the same internet company. Not only were they a couple, but Brandon was also technically Michelle's junior manager. After the introductions, everyone sat back down on their respective beds. When Brandon heard that Leo and Claire had both gotten into Berkeley and were traveling together for freshman registration, his eyes widened in amazement. Berkeley, huh? That's on par with Harvard and Yale. Incredible. Michelle's gaze, meanwhile, danced between Leo and Claire with a spark of playful curiosity. So what's the deal with you two? Before Leo could say anything, Claire, sitting beside him, answered with a faint smile. We were classmates in high school. Deskmates, actually. Brandon looked surprised. What a coincidence. Michelle and I were high school classmates, too. We were deskmates for all 3 years. That surprised Leo. Wow, that really is a coincidence. Claire looked at Brandon. And now you two are? Brandon grinned. A couple, of course. We didn't start dating until we both ended up at the same university. Beside him, Michelle couldn't help but pout, giving her boyfriend a playful glare. You've got some nerve saying that. You have no idea how obvious I was in high school. I did everything short of spelling it out for you. She sighed dramatically. But this one was a total block of wood. I don't know if he was genuinely clueless or just playing dumb, but he never got the hint. Leo froze. Why does that sound so familiar? He could feel Claire's eyes on him for a second, a hint of a smirk on her lips. She turned her gaze back to the couple, feigning curiosity. Really? Can you give us an example? That one question was all it took to ignite Michelle's passion for storytelling. Of course. There are so many, she exclaimed. I was always asking him to eat out after school. I held his hand. I even invented reasons to accidentally run into him so we could go shopping together. Pretty straightforward, right? But this genius just thought it was all perfectly normal because we were deskmates. She threw her hands up in mock exasperation. Claire, Leo, you be the judge. Wasn't your big brother Brandon a total idiot? The corners of Claire's mouth were twitching, on the verge of a full-blown smile, but she managed to keep her expression neutral. She said, her voice light. He'd sound pretty dense. What do you think, Leo? Leo felt a bead of sweat trickle down his back. Sweating bullets. JPG. Brandon just laughed and waved his hand dismissively. Don't make fun of me. It wasn't that I didn't understand. It's just, Michelle was the most popular girl in our class. I couldn't believe she'd be into a regular guy like me. It was flattering, but I wasn't confident, and I wasn't sure if she was serious. So I hesitated. He looked at Michelle fondly. But once we got to college and were still at the same school, it didn't take long for me to finally ask her out. Michelle nodded, beaming. That's right, she said. So, you see, even though we started as desk mates, things developed, and we ended up a couple. She gave Leo and Claire a mischievous look, winking. You never know what the future holds, right? Later, as dinner time approached, Brandon and Michelle had takeout delivered to the compartment by a train attendant. Leo and Claire, however, decided to get up and head to the dining car. As soon as they stepped out of the compartment, Leo let out a massive sigh of relief. That conversation had him sweating. Why did it feel so much like looking in a mirror? Beside him, Claire glanced over, her voice a soft, airy whisper. Not every pair of desk mates ends up like Brandon and Michelle. She paused. You don't have to be scared. Scared? Leo's pride flared. Who's scared? I'm not scared. What a joke. He was a reborn man, a mature soul in his 30s. If he was determined to engage in a thrilling battle of wits with his beautiful deskmate, he couldn't let her keep him on the defensive forever. If the tiger doesn't roar, people will think it's a sick cat. It was time to go on the offensive. An idea sparked. Leo looked at Claire and suddenly grinned. You know, if we did end up like them, it wouldn't be so bad. Claire seemed to freeze for a second. What? Leo pressed his advantage, taking a step forward, backing his deskmate against the wall of the narrow train corridor. I'm saying, if our relationship as deskmates were to develop, it wouldn't be a bad thing. He leaned in closer. After all, I'm not the one at a disadvantage here, right? With that, he went for the kill, planting his hand on the wall next to her head in what he hoped was a cool, commanding move. Caught off guard by his sudden boldness, a blush instantly bloomed across Claire's cheeks. Leo, you... Huh, how do you like that? See? Even you get nervous sometimes. Mwahaha. A tiny cartoon version of himself inside his mind struck a triumphant pose, laughing maniacally. Welcome to the top lane, baby. But in the next second, with the blush still on her cheeks, Claire's lips parted, and she murmured, You're blocking the snack cart. Huh. He blinked. Automatically, he turned his head. A middle-aged woman, pushing a cart loaded with snacks and drinks, was standing right there, glaring at him. He was blocking the entire corridor. Sorry, so sorry. His 3 seconds of cool evaporated instantly. Leo scrambled out of the way, red-faced and apologizing profusely, ambushed by the snack cart lady. Attack failed. In the dining car, Leo and Claire got 2 box meals and found an empty table. They were sharing it with a mother and her daughter. The mother, whose last name was Chu, looked to be about 30 with a gentle demeanor. The little girl, Mia, was 5 or 6, as adorable as a porcelain doll. During their conversation, they learned that the two were also heading to the Bay Area. Mia, sitting on her mother's lap, looked from Leo to Claire and asked in her sweet, childish voice, Mister, are you and the big sister married? Leo chuckled and corrected her gently. No, we're just classmates. Claire was pulled from a light sleep by a rustling sound coming from the neighboring bunk. She always slept shallowly on trains, so she woke up a little earlier than Leo on the bunk below her. And because of that, she heard more specific details of the commotion. It was a series of soft, furtive sounds. The couple was clearly trying to be quiet, careful not to disturb or wake the 2 sleeping teenagers in the same compartment. But in the dead silence of the night train, separated by only a narrow aisle, the low moans and breathy whispers were unmistakably clear to the now-awake girl. Claire felt a hot flush rush to her face. In the darkness, her cheeks burned a deep crimson. In her past life, she had been the president of a publicly traded company, a woman who had seen and handled all sorts of high-stakes situations. But she had never experienced this. For a moment, she was completely flustered, her heart pounding in her chest. She didn't dare breathe, didn't dare make the slightest movement, terrified that the couple next door would realize she was awake. She tried to hold her breath and stay perfectly still, but the faint, continuous rustling only made her face burn hotter. Her ears felt like they were on fire, and a strange weakness spread through her limbs. Those two, how can they be so bold? Mortified, Claire carefully quietly pulled the blanket over her head. Then she took out her phone and tentatively sent a text to the person in the bunk below. "Did you hear that?" A moment later, she heard a faint stir from below, and her phone screen lit up silently with a reply. The 3 exclamation points almost made her laugh out loud. She quickly clapped a hand over her mouth to stifle the sound. The text meant he was awake too, and just as shocked as she was. When she was the only one listening, she had felt embarrassed and flustered. But now that she knew she had a companion in the same predicament, Claire suddenly felt much more relaxed. Lying in her cocoon of blankets, she tilted her head, a mischievous smile spreading across her lips as she typed another text. "What do you think they're doing?" The screen lit up. Leo stared at the question from his deskmate. It was so innocent, so blissfully unaware. "Playing dumb, are we?" he thought, a dark line forming on his forehead. With the sound from the next bunk being so descriptive, was there any doubt what a young couple would be doing in the middle of the night? Fine. If she wanted to play innocent, he could play along. He carefully typed out a reply. Up above, in her blanket fort, Claire's screen lit up again. "Not sure," the text read, "but based on the noise, they might be fighting." His deadpan response nearly made her choke with laughter again. She fought it back and, feigning concern, replied, "Should we go break it up?" "Break it up." Down below, Leo glanced towards the opposite bunk. If they went over to break it up, the couple would probably murder them. He typed back with righteous conviction, "No, let's not. Their relationship is so good. Maybe a little fighting is just their way of spicing things up." Her reply came quickly. "Good relationships have fights?" Of course. In the top bunk, Claire looked at the sanctimonious text on her screen. Her lips curved into a sly smile, her eyes glinting. She typed one more message. "Our relationship is good, too. Do you think we'll ever fight like that?" When Leo saw that text, his hand trembled, nearly dropping his phone. Holy shit, what did she just say? He was stunned, but then he came to his senses. This was her again, teasing him. He couldn't let that stand. He was a reborn man, a veteran of their little war of wits. There was no backing down now. A smirk formed on his lips as his mind raced. He quickly hammered out a reply. "If you want to fight, then let's fight. But I'm warning you, I have extensive combat experience and off-the-charts power. If we really fight, someone might just find themselves surrendering unconditionally at the first exchange." Message sent. The tiny cartoon Leo in his mind, now clad in full armor on horseback, looked bold and magnificent. "Bring it on. Let's battle." The reply came back. That confident? Without hesitation, Leo shot back. "Absolutely. Want to test that?" "Any time." Then, silence from the top bunk. The tiny Leo on horseback threw his head back and laughed, one hand on his hip. "Ha, is that all you've got? Too easy." In the next second, he heard a soft rustling from above. Puzzled, Leo looked up. In the dim light, he could just make out a long, thin, black, silk-like object slowly descending from the gap between the bunk and the wall. As if guided by a finger from above, the silky thing swayed and trembled gently, an alluring, seductive invitation. It was a blackstocking. It instantly killed the game. The phone slipped from his stunned fingers and fell onto the bed. The tiny cartoon Leo in his mind was sent flying off his horse from the force of a massive nosebleed. What the hell? Who uses a basic attack that's actually an ultimate move? At the same time, in the top bunk, Claire leisurely retracted her secret weapon. Putting her phone away, she snuggled back into her blankets, imagining the gobsmacked expression on Leo's face. A smile once again graced her lips. Extensive experience? Off-the-charts power? Is that all you've got? The next morning, around 8 or 9, when Leo and Claire finally got up, they found the compartment empty. Brandon and Michelle had already left. Their destination was Portland, so they had gotten off one stop before Leo and Claire. They must have left quietly, not wanting to wake them. Before they left, however, the couple had left a note with their contact information, warmly inviting them to call if they were ever in Portland so they could get together and show them around. Looking at the note, Claire smiled faintly. Brandon and Michelle, they're really nice people. Leo glanced at the now empty bunk across the aisle, a corner of his mouth twitching. In 2007, security on trains wasn't as tight as it would become. A case in point was the young man with shifty, triangular eyes named Gavin John. He had a record of multiple burglaries and robberies and was on the run after his latest crime. He'd managed to sneak past security at the station and get on the train, planning to lie low in some small town out of state. But that morning, a routine ticket check by a train attendant flagged him. Several railway police officers were immediately on their way. Seeing that he was cornered, Gavin bolted. He sprinted through several cars, passengers in the aisle scrambling out of his way. Just as he was about to keep running, a little girl appeared in the corridor ahead. The sound of the pursuing officer's footsteps grew louder, their shouts closer. In that instant, a vicious glint appeared in Gavin's eyes. He made his decision. He lunged forward, grabbing the terrified little girl who was frozen in place, and pulled her in front of him. At the same time, he brandished a steak knife he'd just swiped from a cart. Gavin spun around to face the officers. "Don't come any closer," he snarled. "One more step, and I'll hurt the girl." It was only then that Mia, held hostage by the criminal, burst into tears. "Mommy!" Further down the aisle, a gentle-looking young woman came stumbling forward, her face a mask of terror. Seeing her daughter held at knife point, she let out a heart-wrenching cry. "Mia!" The officers had arrived, but seeing the situation, they skidded to a halt, not daring to move forward. "Gavin, calm down. Don't do anything crazy. Let the girl go. We can talk about this." Gavin's face was contorted with rage. He tightened his grip on the little girl. "Talk. There's nothing to talk about. Everyone back off. Get away from me. I want you to stop this train and open the doors now. I'll let her go when I'm safe. Otherwise, don't blame me for what happens." Mia was still wailing. "Mommy, help me. I'm scared." What? Hearing her daughter's cries, the young woman's heart shattered. Her legs gave out, and she nearly collapsed. "Mia, let her go. I'll give you money. Take me as a hostage instead." The little girl's cries grew louder, grating on Gavin's already frayed nerves. His anger flared, and he yanked Mia's hair back sharply. "Shut up. You cry again, and I'll kill you." The pain made Mia scream even louder. Her mother let out another despairing cry and nearly fainted. The officers watched, horrified and enraged. "Stop!" one of them yelled. The other passengers were frozen in shock. It was supposed to be a peaceful summer morning on the train. Now, the air was thick with the brutal stench of violence, a terrifying chill spreading through the car. It made everyone's skin crawl, a cold dread creeping up their spines. The thought of such an adorable, doll-like little girl dying at the hands of this monster. An unspeakable fear bloomed in the hearts of everyone present. But all they could do was pray. Pray that the little girl would stop crying. If she further provoked this clearly unstable criminal, the consequences would be unthinkable. The standoff in the train corridor seemed to reach a stalemate. The air was so thick with tension it was hard to breathe, and everyone's nerves were stretched to the breaking point. Mia's crying had subsided to a weak whimper. Many of the passengers and the officers facing down the criminal let out a small, collective sigh of relief. The most important thing was not to push him over the edge. At the same time, an older officer began speaking slowly, his tone placating. "Gavin, don't panic. We can work this out. Stopping the train isn't realistic, but you can wait until the next station. We'll let you go, as long as you release the girl." While he negotiated, trying to distract Gavin, the old officer's eyes subtly flickered towards the space behind him. At the other end of the corridor, two younger officers were cautiously, slowly advancing on their target. If they could close the distance before he noticed, they could tackle the fugitive and rescue the hostage. For a moment, it seemed to be working. Gavin wasn't paying attention. "I don't care," he snarled. "Stop giving me the runaround. Stop the train now." Behind him, the two officers got closer. 15 meters. 10. But just then, whether by chance or a sudden flicker of suspicion, Gavin whipped his head around. He immediately spotted the two officers sneaking up on him. In an instant, the color drained from everyone's faces. "It's over." Gavin's expression turned demonic. "Trying to trick me? I'll show you some blood first." As he spoke, he grabbed the front of Mia's collar and raised a steak knife high. The little girl's cries escalated into a terrified shriek. "Mommy!" In that critical moment, a figure burst out from the side of the corridor, slamming with full force into Gavin. It was a split-second, life-or-death decision. Leo had been standing near the door of his compartment, not far from the criminal and Mia. He had seen everything unfold. The man had a weapon. He had a hostage. It was too risky to make a rash move. But there was no more time to wait. The moment he saw the knife go up, Leo knew it was his only and final chance. He didn't think about his own safety. Just like in his past life at that rain-slicked intersection, when he had shoved Clare out of the way without a second thought, this was pure instinct. His mind hadn't even processed the consequences before his body shot forward like an arrow. In a flash, he crashed into the criminal. The powerful impact sent the unprepared Gavin staggering back several steps, his grip on Mia loosening. Without thinking, Leo immediately pulled the little girl towards him and shoved her hard towards the officers. "Catch!" Mia stumbled forward. The officers, overjoyed, rushed to catch her, sweeping her into their arms. But the crisis wasn't over. Leo didn't have a moment to breathe. In the next second, he spun around to face his opponent. Leo never would have imagined that the first day of his new life at Berkeley would involve a trip to the police station with his beautiful deskmate to give a statement. The officers at the station had already been briefed by their colleagues from the train. They were full of praise for Leo and Clare. After taking down their names and school information, they even mentioned they would be coming to Berkeley to present them with an official commendation for bravery. Commendation for bravery. The phrase made Leo pause. He couldn't help but think of his past life when he had saved Clare. He probably received the same award in that world. At the thought, he subconsciously glanced at Clare. As if on cue, she turned to look at him at the same time. But Leo was puzzled. The look in her eyes was complicated, a mix of emotions he couldn't quite decipher. What's that about? A question mark appeared over the head of the tiny Leo in his mind. Was my heroic rescue so cool it made her heart flutter again? He was about to indulge in a moment of vanity when he remembered her flawless shoulder throw that had ended the fight. The tiny Leo, who had just been about to strike a heroic pose, instantly deflated. Never mind, her move was way cooler. Mia and her mother, Chloe, had also come to the station. After they finished their statements, Chloe Chu, that was her full name, thanked Leo and Clare profusely once again. She brought Mia over and sincerely invited them to her home so she could properly express her gratitude. It was only after Leo and Clare politely declined, explaining they had to get to campus for registration, that the beautiful, gentle woman reluctantly gave up. But she insisted on getting their contact information and gave them her business card, making them promise to let her treat them at dinner sometime soon. By the time they left the police station, it was already afternoon. Lugging their bags on the subway would be a pain, so Leo made the decision to just grab a cab. Berkeley was located in the university town of Song River, in the southwestern part of the city. From the police station near the train station, it was about a 40-minute drive. Sitting in the back of the air-conditioned taxi, feeling the cool air on his skin, Leo finally started to relax. Thinking back on the harrowing incident on the train, his heart still pounded. At that moment, if it hadn't been for Clare's sudden, stunning shoulder throw that had caught everyone by surprise, he would have had to face the armed criminal head-on. Who knows how dangerous that would have been? He turned to look at Clare, who had been unusually quiet since they got off the train. She's probably shaken up, he guessed. No matter how calm her personality, how perfectly she had handled the situation, she was still just a girl who had just turned 18. Are you scared, thinking back on it? He asked gently. Clare nodded. Yeah. Leo thought about how dangerous it had been and couldn't help shaking his head. You were too reckless. If you had made one mistake, you could have been seriously hurt. He meant it as a warning. If something like this ever happened again, she shouldn't take such a risk. A girl needed to prioritize her own safety. But to his surprise, she just looked up at him and asked quietly, "Weren't you?" The question left him speechless. After a moment, he scratched his head. It's different for guys. Besides, I was in such a hurry I didn't think. My body just moved on its own. Anyway, we got lucky, huh? Hearing his cheerful laugh, seeing the carefree way he acted, Clare bit her lip gently. She didn't say anything. She didn't tell him that her fear wasn't for herself. It was the fear of what might have happened to him if she hadn't managed to subdue the criminal. The fear of what would have happened if Leo had been the one to face that knife, unarmed. Yes, they had been really lucky. But in that moment, Clare couldn't stop her mind from replaying that scene from her past life at that rain-drenched intersection. In my last life, we weren't so lucky. She turned her head away, her eyelashes lowered, hiding her expression. In a voice so soft, even he couldn't hear, she whispered, "You're always like this." The taxi arrived at its destination, stopping at the east gate of the University of California, Berkeley. Today was August 16th. Freshman move-in was tomorrow. Leo and Clare got their luggage from the trunk and found a small motel near the campus gate, planning to get 2 rooms for the night. But the owner at the front desk just glanced at them and said flatly, "Only got 1 room left." Leo? He turned to look at Clare. Her expression was calm and unruffled. She simply took out her ID and placed it on the counter. "We'll take it." Thankfully, it was a room with 2 beds. After checking in, they dropped their bags in the room and found a nearby noodle shop for a late lunch. As they ate, they noticed students at the surrounding tables kept stealing glances their way, their eyes filled with awe at Clare's ethereal beauty. In the afternoon, they went to a supermarket to buy some daily necessities, then stood in a long line at a telecom store to get local SIM cards. By the time they finished their errands, it was already evening. After another quick dinner, Leo suggested they take a walk around campus. Clare, however, said she wanted to go back to the motel and freshen up first. Leo waited in the motel lobby bored. After a while, he heard footsteps. Clare emerged, freshly showered. She had changed into a simple white sundress with a delicate floral pattern, her waterfall of black hair cascading over her shoulders. She seemed to be enveloped in a faint, misty aura from her shower, which only enhanced her otherworldly, heart-stopping beauty. Leo stared, momentarily stunned. It wasn't until she looked at him, one eyebrow raised in a half-smile, and said, "Well," that he snapped out of it. He cleared his throat to hide his embarrassment. "Let's go. Time for a tour." In the evening, the Berkeley campus was bathed in the golden glow of the sunset, casting a soft, brilliant light over everything. The sunset painted the sky in brilliant hues. The wide, tree-lined avenue leading from Berkeley's East Gate was bustling with students coming and going. But in that one moment, because of a simple, small gesture from the girl, the world seemed to freeze. It was as if the flowing river of students had suddenly stopped, the murmur of conversation choked into an abrupt, dead silence. Nearly every Berkeley student who saw it happen stood stunned, unable to believe their own eyes. "Wait, dude. Holy shit. They're holding hands." And it was the girl, the impossibly beautiful, coolly elegant one, who took the guy's hand first. A level 8 tsunami crashed through the minds of every bystander. They had assumed the guy walking beside her was, at most, a classmate or a friend. But now, it looked like this perfect flower was already spoken for her. Leo was just as baffled. He looked down at his hand, now held by Clare, a giant question mark floating over his head. What was happening? Did she not even give a heads up before holding his hand now? He needed some kind of explanation, something to make this feel even slightly reasonable. As if sensing his thoughts, Clare raised an eyebrow, her expression as calm as ever. "A lot of people are looking at me," she said nonchalantly. "The way they're staring is weird. I don't like it. Using you as a shield isn't too much to ask, is it?" Leo blinked and looked around. Sure enough, plenty of people on the avenue were staring directly at them. He immediately understood. Oh, that actually made sense. Back in high school, she had been relentlessly pursued by a swarm of admirers, and it had been a huge nuisance for her. Now, arriving at college, she was inevitably facing the same situation. She needed a shield, a way to make some people back off and give her some peace. The logic was sound. As he noticed the unabashed stares fixed on Clare, Leo felt a strange flicker of annoyance. He made a decision. Deal. Then he proactively squeezed her soft hand and even lifted it slightly, as if to make sure everyone around them got a crystal clear view. Instantly, eyes all around them widened. The sound of hearts shattering was almost audible. A barrage of gazes shot their way. Negative emotions +1, +1. Shock +1, +1. Envy, jealousy, and hate +1, +1. Sensing the shift in the collective mood, Leo's own spirits lifted considerably. He proudly held his deskmate's hand and strode forward. As he led her on, Clare was momentarily surprised by his proactive gesture. Then she understood. Looking at the back of his head, a smile flowed into her eyes. "Little Leo, it seems like you're trying to declare your sovereignty." They wandered around campus for a while, getting a general feel for the layout. As it grew late, they headed back to the small motel by the East Gate. Inside the room, he flipped on the lights. The decor was simple and plain. It was a motel for students, not a luxury hotel. It was a room with 2 beds, and indeed, there were 2 small twin beds. And they were pushed right next to each other, forming one large 2-4-meter-wide bed. I have no idea who stayed here last, but they must have been really close, Leo thought, the corner of his mouth twitching. Clare glanced at him and said coolly, "If you're worried, you can separate the beds." It was a dare, and it was 100% effective. Leo's hackles immediately rose. "I'm not worried. That's hilarious. Why would a guy be worried? I'm not the one at a disadvantage here. The top lane. The battle rages on. The one and only rule is never back down." Clare looked unconcerned. "Oh, well, I'm not worried either." Leo made a grand, sweeping declaration. Then it settled. Time for bed. The previous night on the train, they had slept in their clothes. But now they were in a motel room. Clare went into the bathroom and emerged a few minutes later in her pajamas. A simple, plain nightgown that revealed 2 perfectly ordinary, pale white arms and a pair of perfectly ordinary, long, smooth legs. Completely ordinary. Leo swallowed hard, trying to hypnotize himself into a state of calm. Clare looked at him. "Aren't you going to change?" Leo froze. Guys didn't really have pajamas. At home in the summer, he just slept in a pair of boxers. But was that something he could do in front of his deskmate? The girl in front of him, however, looked completely unfazed, her eyes clear and calm. "It's perfectly normal to take your clothes off to sleep in a motel. We're just deskmates. I won't get any weird ideas. Unless you have a guilty conscience, a critical hit, annihilated." Leo gritted his teeth. He couldn't back down. Then turn off the lights first. Standing by the wall, Claire flipped the switch. The room plunged into darkness. Leo seized the opportunity, quickly shucked off his pants, and duffed for the bed. But in the next second, the lights flashed back on. He was caught, red-handed, wearing nothing but a pair of boxer shorts, illuminated for all to see. The air froze. Leo. Leo. The girl by the wall offered a deadpan apology. Oops. My hand slipped. Leo hissed. Well, slip it back. The lights finally went out again. Leo shot under the covers, pulling the blanket over his head in a state of infinite, tragic despair. Claire calmly got in her own bed, pulling up the other comforter, serene and composed. But inside her mind, a tiny cartoon version of herself was setting off celebratory fireworks. Ha ha, I saw everything. So happy. Woo-hoo. The next day, August 17th, freshman move-in day. Leo and Claire were in different majors, advertising and finance, which meant they were in the School of Humanities and the School of Business, respectively. To make things easier, they decided to split up on campus and handle their registrations separately. The campus was a chaotic, crowded sea of people, all new Berkeley freshmen. Leo fought his way through the crowd, searching for the registration table for his school. When he found it, the line was already long. While he was waiting, he got a text. Claire had already finished signing in and was heading to her dorm to drop off her luggage. Leo texted back, asking if she needed help. The reply came a moment later. At the School of Humanities registration table, after a long wait, it was finally Leo's turn. A few sophomores from his student council were helping with check-in. When Leo walked up, the girls looked up, and their eyes visibly brightened. This freshman was kind of cute. His black hair was casually messy, but didn't look sloppy. Framed by his handsome, refined face, it gave him an air of effortless cool. I wonder if he has a girlfriend? Two of the girls wondered, exchanging a look. Who cares if he does? What's a high school sweetheart compared to a sophisticated older woman? They immediately greeted Leo with a wave of enthusiasm, their attitude noticeably warmer than it had been for the other freshmen. With the helpful guidance of the sophomores, Leo filled out his name, student ID, and major, finishing his registration in no time. He was given his dorm key, Building 37, Room 520. The two friendly sophomores gave him directions and even offered to help carry his luggage and walk him over. Leo politely declined, saying he could manage. But as he dragged his suitcase towards the dorms, he was in a pretty good mood. The upperclassmen here are really friendly. The day's off to a good start. He took out his phone and sent a text to Claire. Finished my registration. FYI, two sophomores just offered to help me with my bags. The tiny cartoon Leo in his mind put his hands on his hips, puffed out his chest, and declared, See that, little Miss Deskmate? Your boy's got charm. A second later, her reply came. Oh, 10 seniors were fighting to help me. One simple sentence. Total annihilation. Leo's face fell. He put his phone away. So much for showing off. He arrived at Building 37. The dorms didn't have elevators yet. Thankfully, Leo didn't have too much luggage. He hauled his large suitcase up 5 flights of stairs, only breaking a light sweat, his breathing even. He felt a sense of satisfaction. It's great to have the body of an 18-year-old. In his past life, by the time he was 30, he felt like he had the body of a 60-year-old. Just going downstairs to grab takeout would leave him drenched in sweat. He walked down the 5th-floor hallway, following the room numbers until he reached 520. The door was ajar, and he could hear people talking inside. Leo pushed the door open with his suitcase. Sure enough, 2 of his roommates were already there, sitting on their chairs, munching on sunflower seeds and chatting. When they saw him come in, they immediately stood up and greeted him warmly. After introductions, he learned their names. One was Dylan, short, no more than 5'7", skinny, wearing glasses, the classic nerdy type who seemed a bit shy and introverted. The other was Marco Shaw, dressed head to toe in trendy, brand-name clothes. As his name suggested, he was also quite handsome. After a few minutes of conversation, Leo realized this guy was basically a carbon copy of his best friend Kevin. Extroverted, instantly familiar, but way more narcissistic and obnoxious. I came to Berkeley for 3 things, and 3 things only. Marco declared, picking up girls, and picking up more girls. If I don't hit on every single classmate and upperclassman in this school, I'll be doing a disservice to this world-class face of mine. After his grand proclamation, the ambitious Marco flipped his hair, a look of pure self-admiration on his face. Dylan listened with a hint of envy. That's amazing. I went to an all-boys school for middle and high school. Now, whenever I see a girl, I get so nervous I can't even speak. In the next second, A fiery ambition ignited in Dylan's eyes. So, my goal is this. Over the next 4 years, I will initiate a conversation of more than 10 sentences, with each sentence being over 30 words long, with at least 100 different girls. Marco looked at him with admiration and approval. My man, that's the spirit. Dylan nodded emphatically. Let's do our best. The two high-fived, a look of mutual understanding on their faces. Leo, this was a weird way to start his first day of college. What kind of bizarre roommates did he have? The three of them were chatting when they heard footsteps in the hallway. The door swung open. They all looked up, and upon seeing the newcomer, froze in shock. Holy shit. The person who entered was built like a tank. He was at least 6'1", as muscular as a professional bodybuilder. He was carrying 2 suitcases in his hands, had 2 bulging woven bags tucked under his arms, and a huge duffel bag slung over his shoulder. And after carrying all that up 5 flights of stairs, the guy wasn't even out of breath. He looked completely fine. An absolute beast. All 3 of them felt a surge of respect. The newcomer, however, seemed rather humble and honest. He looked cautiously at the 3 guys in the room. Is this room 520? My name's Leon. I'm your new roommate. And with that, the quartet was complete. After another round of introductions, they learned that Leon was from a rural part of the state, had taken a gap year, and was the oldest in the room. By age, Marco, a local from the Bay Area, was the second oldest. Leo was third, and Dylan was the youngest. Once they settled down, Leon enthusiastically opened one of his woven bags and pulled out some homemade date cakes, a specialty from his hometown. Try some. I brought them from home. They're delicious. The other 3 politely refused. Oh no, we couldn't possibly. 10 seconds later, each of them was holding 2 or 3 date cakes, munching away happily. Holy crap, this is amazing. When guys get together, the conversation inevitably turns to girls. On this topic, Marco's eyes lit up, and he launched into a breathless monologue, sharing his intel with his 3 new roommates. Turns out, he'd done his homework. Over the summer, he had joined 13 different group chats for incoming freshmen covering 6 or 7 different schools and hundreds, if not thousands, of new students. He'd also gotten friendly with some of the upperclassmen in those chats. It didn't take long for him to gather some valuable intelligence on the distribution of campus beauties. The legendary beauties from the sophomore and junior classes, I know them all like the back of my hand, and the School of Kinesiology is full of athletic, long-legged girls. The School of Tourism has a ton of future flight attendants and tour guides. School of Engineering? What's that? A monastery. Not even a dog would go there. According to Marco, the 3 schools at Berkeley that produced the most beautiful women were business, humanities, and performing arts. In our year, among the freshmen who have already registered, Marco continued, counting them off like a seasoned expert. There's an Isabella Zhao from performing arts, a Lily Liu from our own School of Humanities, a Tanya Tang from tourism, a Chloe Cheen from poli-sci, a Hannah Chu from kinesiology. He rattled them off. These are basically the guaranteed top girls of their respective schools for our year. On a combined scale of looks and body, they're all at least an 8 out of 10. I have an Excel spreadsheet with all the data. I guarantee you it's reliable. Leon and Dylan listened, completely mesmerized, looking at their roommate as if he were some kind of god. Leo couldn't help but be amused. This guy was a walking, talking ranking of the school's most beautiful women. Suddenly, Dylan thought of something. What about the School of Business? You said that's one of the top schools for beauties too, right? Marco gave them a mysterious smile. Patience. I was just getting to that. The School of Business. That's the main event. The beauties in the business program this year are a royal flush. Building 37, room 520. The air in the dorm room was thick with the electric buzz of gossip. Leo, Dylan, and Leon sat on small stools, huddled together like eager students, looking up at Marco to hear the rest of his story. Marco, having somehow produced a folding fan, snapped it open with a flourish and fanned himself twice, adopting the air of seasoned, all-knowing sage. He smacked his lips, savoring the moment. Then he snapped the fan shut and opened it again, fanning himself twice more. Damn, I'm so cool, he thought. By the time he was about to open the fan for a 3rd time, Leo, Dylan, and Leon were giving him a look that said, "If you keep stalling, the 3 of us are going to murder you." Ah, don't worry, I'm getting to it. Marco laughed nervously, quickly putting the fan away. He leaned in, his expression conspiratorial. According to the intelligence I've gathered from various sources, the School of Business is on another level this year. I hear there are at least 2 or 3 new freshmen with a combined rating of 8 or higher. In any other school, they'd be in the running for the top spot. But that's not even the best part. He had their full attention again. A smug look appeared on Marco's face, and he instinctively reached for his fan before catching himself. The best part, if you'll allow me to build the suspense. Before he could finish, he noticed his 3 roommates were already rolling up their sleeves. Hey, what are you guys doing? Leo's face was blank. Leon, Dylan. Get him. Marco's eyes widened in terror. Whoa, don't be rash, I was wrong, and not the face. After giving Marco a thorough beatdown, the 3 of them returned to their seats, feeling refreshed. A disheveled Marco, his hair a mess, struggled to his feet. He was much more cooperative now. What I mean is, he said, spilling the beans, besides the few 8 out of 10s, the School of Business supposedly has a goddess. A literal fairy. At least a 9, maybe even a 10. The words made Dylan and Leon's eyes go wide. Leon was skeptical. A 10? Are you serious? You said an 8 is already top tier. A 10 would make her the campus queen? No question. Dylan nodded in agreement. I saw Isabella Zhao from Performing Arts from a distance yesterday. I'd say she's at least a 9. You're saying this girl from business is even prettier? Marco waved his hand dismissively. Guaranteed. This is based on data compiled from dozens of sources. The other top freshmen, including the 2 or 3 from business, are all more or less on the same level, fluctuating around an 8. But this goddess I'm talking about, everyone in my freshman group chats who has been lucky enough to catch a glimpse of her says the same thing. She's a 10. A heart-stoppingly, ethereally beautiful, knockout 10. The new queen of Berkeley. No doubt about it. The new queen of the School of Business. Heart-stoppingly beautiful? Ethereally cool. Sitting there, Leo rubbed his chin. Why did that sound so damn familiar? Warming to his topic, Marco got even more animated. And I have more specifics. Yesterday evening, this future ice queen of our campus supposedly made an appearance. The moment she showed up on the main avenue, she stunned everyone. People who saw her just stopped and stared, completely mesmerized. I know a guy who was there. He told me that she was with a guy. Leo's brow furrowed. This was sounding more and more familiar. Suddenly it hit him. Holy shit, he's talking about me and Clare. But thinking about it, it made sense. With Clare's looks and aura, being crowned the new 10 out of 10 campus queen of Berkeley was pretty much a given. Just then, Dylan and Leon, who had been listening intently, seized on a key detail. Wait, there was a guy with her? Marco nodded, his face a mask of anguish. Yes, a guy. According to my buddy, the dude was an ugly freak, a total troll. I have no idea how he got so lucky, walking with a 10 out of 10 ice goddess like that. And he even had the nerve to hold her hand in public. My buddy said the goddess tried to pull away, but she couldn't. Dylan and Leon were shocked and outraged. Seriously? Who was that guy? That's straight-up harassment. He should be arrested. Leo was shocked too. Wait, what? First day of college, and he was already experiencing the terrifying power of rumors. He cleared his throat, feeling the need to set his roommates straight. Actually, there's a problem with that story. I heard the guy was actually pretty handsome, and it wasn't him who initiated the hand-holding, it was the girl. Before he could finish, Marco cut him off with a grand wave of his hand. Dude, what are you talking about? Was my buddy there, or were you there? This is first-hand intel. It can't be wrong. Dylan and Leon nodded sagely, looking at Leo with reproach. Just listen to the gossip, man. What's it to you? Why are you defending that guy? Leo. Well, damn. As they were talking, Leo's phone buzzed. It was a text from Clare. She said she had accidentally taken a bag of his clothes and asked for his dorm and room number so she could drop it off. Leo typed out a reply with the information. As soon as he sent it, 3 heads popped up in front of him, their eyes burning with the fire of gossip. Dropping off clothes? Oh, spill. Leo instinctively scooted his stool back. Nobody, just a high school classmate. Their eyes got even brighter. A high school classmate? She got into Berkeley too? Guy or girl? Spill. Leo answered honestly. A girl. She's in the School of Business, International Finance. A rapid-fire barrage of questions followed. What's your relationship? Is she hot? Are you dating? Spill. Leo scratched his head. We're just normal classmates. Deskmates for 3 years. She was the valedictorian back home, and I was second. That one sentence instantly killed their interest. Valedictorian? A nerdy girl? Marco sighed in disappointment, shaking his head. I've seen plenty of those smart girls. Usually, their grades and their looks are inversely proportional. He clapped Leo sympathetically on the shoulder. Dude, that deskmate of yours probably isn't much to look at. 3 years of that. You poor bastard. Anyone who got into Berkeley was a top student in their hometown, so Leo's roommates weren't particularly impressed by the term valedictorian. If anything, learning that the classmate bringing him clothes was a nerdy girl made them feel a lot better. For a second there, they thought their new roommate was already a step ahead of them, with a pretty girl fawning over him. Thank God. It was just a nerdy girl. Marco even started giving Leo some earnest, heartfelt advice. Dude, your looks are almost on my level. College is a whole new world. You can't give up the entire forest for one nerdy little sapling. Leon and Dylan nodded emphatically. Exactly. Marco just said there are tons of beautiful freshmen here. And that's not even counting the upperclassmen. With your looks, finding a girlfriend in college will be a piece of cake. His roommates were so well-intentioned. Leo could only nod and pretend to take their advice to heart, mumbling, "We're really just normal deskmates." The kind of pure, platonic deskmates who watch the stars together, hold hands walking to and from school, have kissed while drunk, hug on a mountaintop, met each other's parents, and slept in the same room. A few minutes later, Leo's phone buzzed again. It was Claire. She was downstairs. After telling his roommates he was heading out, Leo left the room and went down to the first-floor lobby. He immediately saw a tall, beautiful figure standing by the steps outside, holding a bag. He walked out to meet her. "How long have you been waiting?" Claire handed him the bag of clothes. "Just got here." Then she looked at him. "What were you doing?" Leo scratched his head. "Nothing. Just chatting with my new roommates." "How about you?" Claire's expression was casual. "It's fine. My 3 roommates are in the same major. They're nice, and they're all really pretty." "What are your roommates like?" Leo thought for a moment. One was a beast built like King Kong who could carry 10 bags of rice up 5 flights of stairs. One had basically never spoken to a girl in his life, and the other had already scouted out every beautiful woman in the school on the first day. The thought gave him a complicated feeling. My roommates. They're vaguely humanoid. Seeing the strange, conflicted look on his face, Claire grew curious. "What's wrong?" Leo shook his head. "Nothing. They're good guys." But then he remembered the rumor they had been discussing and couldn't help but lament. "Oh, did you hear? The story about our walk last night is already spreading. People are saying I was taking advantage of you, that I forced you to hold my hand. Rumors are just shameful." Claire raised an eyebrow, her expression as calm as ever. "Between deskmates, there's no such thing as taking advantage. We have nothing to hide. We don't need to be afraid of what people say." She paused, then glanced at Leo and added nonchalantly, "If you feel it was unfair, I can let you take advantage of me again to make it even." As she spoke, she casually held out her small hand, offering it to him. Leo froze. He looked at the delicate white hand she was offering so freely. Then he looked around. Just in the few minutes they had been standing there talking, they had already attracted the attention of several students passing by. Some were even slowing down or stopping, their gazes drifting over. Leo took a wary step back and shook his head forcefully. "Let's not." The powerful survival instinct of his 30-year-old soul was screaming. If he held her hand again in public, he felt like he'd end up on every guy's hit list on campus. Again? Wait, why did he think again? After getting his clothes, Leo was about to head back upstairs when Claire called out to him. "It's almost noon. Want at lunch?" Leo hesitated, puzzled. "Aren't you eating with your roommates?" The girl's expression was placid. "We're having a group dinner tonight. I'm free for lunch." Then she looked at him, her eyes clear and bright. "We always ate together in high school. Are you not eating with me now that we're in college?" As our deskmate friendship faded so quickly, being stared at by those clear and bright eyes was getting to him. Why did he suddenly feel like he was the one heartlessly abandoning her? After a moment's thought, he nodded. "Okay, let me just go drop this off and tell my roommates." He went back up to the dorm with his clothes. After putting them in his closet, he told his roommates he was having lunch with his high school deskmate. Leon, Dylan, and Marco nodded agreeably. They had already planned to eat separately for lunch and get together that night for a big dorm dinner. Leon, the most down-to-earth of the group, looked at Leo with some admiration. "She brings you your clothes. She asked you to lunch. You and your high school deskmate are really close, huh?" Dylan, who had never had a proper conversation with a female other than his mother, spoke with the air of a seasoned expert. "You don't get it, Leon. The smarter the woman, the more devious she is. She's setting a trap for him. Acting so close is her way of getting him. She's after his body." Marco looked at Dylan with approval. "Dylan's right. You gotta be careful, man. She's being so nice to you, slowly getting you used to this dynamic, making you comfortable with your relationship. Before you know it, you'll have fallen for her without even realizing it." He slung an arm around Leo's shoulders and spoke with grave seriousness. "For the sake of the vast forest that awaits you, you have to hold the line. Don't fall for one nerdy girl. Remember, you two are just high school classmates, normal deskmates. No matter how flirty she gets, you have to treat it as a completely normal friendship. Don't admit to anything else." Dylan nodded sagely. "Exactly. It's just a simple interaction between classmates. Getting lunch together is perfectly reasonable." Leo was stunned. "Holy shit, those are all my lines. Where did these guys learn them?" He left the dorm and met Claire downstairs. They decided to go to the Wisteria Dining Hall, one of the three main cafeterias on campus, since it was the closest. As they walked side by side into the dining hall, the ethereally beautiful girl immediately captured the attention of nearly everyone inside. Leo stared at the flood of excited messages blowing up his dorm's group chat. He took a deep breath and quickly typed out a reply. "Don't come. I'm at Wisteria, and it's way too crowded. You can't even move in here." That seemed to be enough to dissuade his roommates. As much as they wanted to see the goddess, the thought of fighting through a packed cafeteria during the summer lunch rush was a powerful deterrent. But another piece of information in Leo's message caught their attention. "You're at Wisteria? Did you see the goddess? My buddy said that guy who forced her hold his hand yesterday is with her again. Go find him. Punch him for me." Dylan and Marco were spamming the chat, their messages filled with righteous fury. Leon, with his extensive fitness and boxing experience, helpfully offered some technical advice. "When you throw the punch, make sure to rotate your arm and use your hips." Leo, "Okay." He put his phone down and saw Claire looking at him from across the table, a questioning look in her eyes. "What's wrong?" The corner of Leo's mouth twitched. "Nothing. My roommates just told me to punch myself." After a simple lunch of noodles with Claire, they discussed their afternoon plans. She said she still had a lot of unpacking to do in her dorm. Once they finished eating, they took their bowls to the cleaning station and left. As they walked out, Leo could still feel countless gazes on his back, like a volley of sharp arrows. Homicidal intent +1, +1, +1. When Leo got back to room 520 that afternoon, his roommates had already bought instant noodles from the campus store and finished their lunch. Right now, Marco and Leon were huddled around Dylan's chair, watching him browse the school's online forum on a bulky laptop. Seeing Leo return, the three of them greeted him with manic excitement. "Leo, get over here. Someone just updated the freshman beauty intel on the forum." Young college students these days, sighed Leo's 30-year-old soul, shaking his head in disappointment. Is that all they think about? His 18-year-old body, however, zipped right over. "Really? Let me see." On the Berkeley student forum, the most popular post was pinned to the top. The official '07 Freshman Beauties Dossier, HD, pics inside. The post had been up for less than 2 hours and already had tens of thousands of views and hundreds of replies. Opening the thread revealed a gallery of photos of beautiful new students. It included all the girls Marco had mentioned earlier: Tanya Tang from tourism, Chloe Cheen from poli-sci, Hannah Chu from kinesiology. They were all there. The information was incredibly detailed, listing each girl's name, school, major, and even estimated height, weight, and measurements. Marco was blown away. He looked ready to declare the original poster his soulmate. "This guy's a legend, a true connoisseur." Leo leaned in for a look. The photos were indeed a stunning collection of talent, each girl beautiful and charismatic in her own way. Of course, he thought, they're still not quite on Claire's level. Just then, Dylan refreshed the page, and a few new replies appeared. One user had posted, "These are nothing. Total duds. Check out this pic I just secretly took of the ice goddess from the business school." Dylan's jaw dropped. "Whoa, guys, look. Someone just posted a picture of the goddess from Wisteria." Leon and Marco, who were about to head back to their desks, shot back over, their eyes wide with anticipation. Where? Let me see." Leo also stopped and turned around, stunned. On the laptop screen, Dylan had enlarged the newly posted photo. It showed a girl in simple, clean clothes, sitting at a corner table in the Wisteria dining hall, her head lowered as she ate her noodles. The photographer must have been far away, because the picture was blurry and indistinct, making it impossible to see her face clearly. But even as a fuzzy silhouette, the girl's graceful posture, the vague outline of her delicate profile, and the palpable aura of cool, radiant beauty were enough to make the three guys huddled around the screen gasp in admiration. "Holy crap, she really is a goddess." Even with a crappy phone camera, you can feel that 10 out of 10 campus queen energy. As the three of them showered the photo with praise, their eyes drifted to the edge of the frame, where they noticed something else. The person sitting across from the goddess. The three roommates were instantly filled with hate. What the hell? It's that scumbag again. That bastard. What right does he have to sit across from the goddess? That guy needs to die. In the next second, Leon squinted at the blurry silhouette of the damn guy in the corner of the photo. Huh, those clothes look a little like Leo's. Marco and Dylan immediately whipped their heads around to look at Leo, their eyes scanning him up and down in surprise. You're right. Same jeans and white t-shirt. And the body type looks about the same, too. Leo struggled to remain calm. A lot of people dress like that. It's pretty normal, right? Just a coincidence. A total coincidence. The three of them thought about it and decided that made sense. They nodded. Reasonable. Leo's the smart one here. They all turned back to the screen to continue admiring the photo of the goddess. Leo, sitting to the side, secretly wiped away a cold sweat. Of course I'm a smart one. If my brain worked any slower, I'd be a dead man in room 520 right now. That evening, the four residents of room 520 went out for their first group dinner. They found an all-you-can-eat Korean barbecue place just outside the East Gate. It was $28 per person, economical and practical, though they'd heard from upperclassmen that it was guaranteed to give you diarrhea the next day. But they were 18. Their bodies could handle it. Who was afraid of a little diarrhea? If it saved money, it was worth it. Marco, true to his word about becoming the king of Berkeley, had already lined up a date on his first day. She was getting ready, he said, and would be there soon. And soon enough, the guys of room 520 finally got to witness firsthand what Dylan meant when he said he couldn't talk to girls. 1 second, the four of them were happily grilling meat and chatting, with Dylan excitedly rattling off details about the beautiful freshmen in every school. At the Korean barbecue restaurant, Marco's words made the other two roommates snap to attention. Leon's eyes widened in realization. That's right, Leo did say that before. Doesn't that mean she's in the same school and major as the campus goddess? With a girl present, Dylan's speech functions were completely locked down. He whipped out a notebook from somewhere and began scribbling furiously before holding it up. Correct. He did. Marco's memory was jogging. And when we saw him texting his high school deskmate, the contact name started with Sue, right? Leon looked shocked. The same last name as the campus goddess? What a coincidence. Dylan nodded vigorously, continuing to write in his notebook before holding it up again. Right. I remember that too. The three roommates stared at Leo, their brows furrowed in thought. Seeing that they were starting to piece together the various coincidences and were getting dangerously close to the truth, Leo cleared his throat. Oh yeah, it is a coincidence. My deskmate is also in international finance. Her name is... His mind went into overdrive. His eyes darted around the restaurant and landed on a small flyer taped to the wall. It was an ad for a hardware wholesaler, complete with pictures of rebar and copper wire. Inspiration struck. His eyes lit up. Her name is Bertha Sue. The air at the table fell silent for a moment. The three roommates, along with the cute business school freshman, Jenny Jo, just stared at him. A single question mark slowly appeared over each of their heads. Bertha Sue. Marco looked at Leo like he had grown a second head. Dude, he stammered, your high school deskmate. A girl. Is named Bertha Sue. Leo began to lie with a perfectly straight face. Yeah, it's a tradition back home. You give kids strong, sturdy names, helps them grow up tough. Leon was baffled. That's a little too sturdy, don't you think? He muttered. Jenny, the cute girl, hesitated for a long time before carefully choosing her words. That name is certainly very robust. Dylan scribbled in his notebook and held it up, summing it up in one word. Awesome. After they finally managed to process this information, Marco burst out laughing. Damn, Leo, your nerdy deskmate sounds like a piece of work. Not only is she smart, but her name is that intense too. Good thing. For a second there, I almost thought it was really that much of a coincidence, like the campus goddess and your high school deskmate were the same person. Huh? He laughed at his own joke, and the others at the table joined in. Dylan held up his notebook, which now read, Huh? Everyone was laughing, and the tension immediately dissipated. Leo forced a laugh along with them. Huh? Yeah, that would be way too much of a coincidence. Huh? Inside his head, the tiny cartoon Leo was frantically wiping away sweat. The next day, the freshmen of each major attended their first official class meeting. For advertising section 2, where the guys of room 520 were, the meeting was on the 4th floor of the second classroom building. As soon as they sat down, Marco activated his primary skill, his shifty eyes scanning the room. He quickly assessed the looks of every girl present, his own eyes lighting up as he leaned in to share his findings with his roommates. Front section, 3rd row. Second section, 6th row. 4th section, second to last row. 3 of them. All around a 6 out of 10. The quality of girls in our class is pretty decent. Sitting next to him, Dylan nodded excitedly, scribbled in his notebook, and held it up. Indeed, with girls present within a 10-foot radius, Dylan's speech function was once again sealed. A few minutes later, their advisor walked in. He was young, probably only 25 or 26, with a relaxed and open personality. He started with a simple introduction. Hi everyone, my name is Alex, and I'll be the advisor for advertising sections 1 and 2. I also graduated from Berkeley, so I'm one of you. I'm not much older than you all, so you can call me Mr. Leon, or just call me Alex. Leon, ever the earnest one, immediately boomed, Alex. The other students burst out laughing, and even Alex on the stage couldn't help but smile. The ice was broken, and the atmosphere in the classroom relaxed. Once the laughter died down, Alex got down to business. All right, you've all registered and are now officially Berkeley students. Here's the schedule for the coming days. First up is freshman orientation, which will last for 7 days. That announcement was met with a chorus of groans from the students. Alex laughed and pointed at them. Hey, don't complain. This school is pretty humane. At other universities, orientation is at least 14 days. We only have 7. And he paused, a knowing smile on his face. Orientation starts the day after tomorrow on August 20th. The school specifically left tomorrow, August 19th, open for you. We did that to accommodate some of your needs. Before orientation begins, we want to let you all have a chance to celebrate the Star Festival. In 2007, the Star Festival fell on August 19th, which was tomorrow. As soon as the advisor said this, a wave of excited murmurs swept through the classroom. Marco seized the opportunity to shout, "You need someone to celebrate it with, though. Alex, does the school hand out girlfriends? Is there a distribution program?" The class erupted in laughter again. Many of the girls blushed and playfully rolled their eyes, while the guys hooted in support. Dylan held up his notebook, on which he had written 3 large words, requesting distribution. Alex just laughed and shook his head. Knock it off. If you've got the guts, go find one yourself. But the mention of the Star Festival had indeed planted a seed in many of the students' minds. Those who already had partners were already starting to make plans for the romantic holiday. As for the single ones, their minds were also buzzing with possibilities, wondering if they might be able to find someone special in the romantic atmosphere of the Star Festival. Building 16 was one of the freshman dorms for Berkeley School of Business, exclusively for women. The first and second floors housed this year's incoming class, and room 205 on the second floor had already earned a reputation as the beauty dorm. To say that the 4 girls of 205 had an average attractiveness score of 6. 5 out of 10 would be no exaggeration. First, there was Molly Tang, an international finance major. She was pure and sweet, with a petite frame and the adorable air of a girl next door. But packed into that small body was a surprising amount of strength. On the first day of move-in, she'd shown up lugging 3 or 4 large suitcases by herself. An eager upperclassman had offered to help, only to nearly throw out his back the moment he took the handles. The next second, Molly had snatched the bags back and powered away, leaving a crowd of stunned onlookers in her wake. A cute but deadly contrast. Second, Jade Jiang, also in international finance. She was the cool, brilliant type, the valedictorian of her city. Her personality was placid yet sharp. With her long, straight black hair and black-framed glasses, she radiated an aura of calm rationality. Rumor had it that in high school, she and her equally brilliant ex-boyfriend had created an Excel spreadsheet to schedule their study sessions and dates, planned down to the minute. She was methodical to a fault. Third, Quinn Liu, from the other international finance class. She was the definition of a bombshell, curvy, with a tiny waist and long legs. Her exquisitely seductive face was an easy 8 out of 10. She was vivacious, outgoing, and effortlessly understood how to wrap men around her finger, with admirers to spare. If things had gone as expected, this captivating beauty, with her player-like charisma, would have been the undisputed queen of the International Finance Department, if not the entire School of Business. But unfortunately for her, there was an unexpected variable, and that variable was the 4th resident of room 205. 4th Bertha S. Ahem. My mistake, Clare Sterling. The uncontested, perfect 10-class beauty, department beauty, and campus queen. She was breathtakingly, devastatingly beautiful, a cool, radiant presence that seemed almost otherworldly. Perfect face, perfect figure, perfect aura. On move-in day, her arrival had caused an uproar at the School of Business registration tables. In an instant, she became the untouchable ice goddess in the hearts of every guy in the department. A dorm like this, a collection of 4 distinctly different types of beautiful women, naturally became a sacred ground in the minds of countless male students, a place to be revered, not trespassed upon. But with the campus's Lovers' Festival tomorrow, they couldn't help but feel a stir of excitement and curiosity. Who would be the brave hero to first breach the defenses of room 205 and successfully ask one of them out? Count me out, Molly Tang said, lounging lazily on her top bunk in room 205, engrossed in a romance novel. Real-life romance is never as sweet as it is in books. She held the book aloft with both hands. My fictional couple is all I need to celebrate the festival with. As the dorm's resident sweetheart and a top-tier romantic, her passion wasn't for her own love life, but for the relationships in her stories. Half of her luggage for college had been filled with romance novels. When she reached a particularly sweet part, she would roll around on her bed, letting out strange squeals. I can't take it. It's too sweet, too sweet. At the desk below the neighboring bunk, the dorm's resident genius, Jade, was flipping through a textbook. Hearing her roommate's declaration, she adjusted her black-framed glasses and spoke calmly. I'm not interested either. I'd rather use the time to get a head start on next semester's material. Molly was floored. Next semester's material? This semester's classes haven't even started. Jade, you're an animal. Across the room, at the desk below the first bunk, Quinn Liu was admiring herself in her makeup mirror, turning her head this way and that. You two can stay in, but I'm definitely going out. It's the Lovers' Festival. How could I miss a holiday like this? The thing is, I got nearly 20 offers from freshmen to upperclassmen. She preened. You guys have to help me pick one later. Jade frowned. A few of those guys who asked you look like they're nothing but trouble. You should be careful. Molly propped her chin on her hands and nodded vigorously in agreement. Totally. My books say upperclassmen are a dangerous species. A lot of them are players. Quinn, however, was unconcerned. She continued gazing at her reflection, a confident, seductive smile playing on her lips. If they weren't players, I wouldn't even bother. Taking advantage of nice guys isn't my style. Besides, who says only guys get to be players? We can all play the game. We'll see who's better at it in the end. Molly and Jade just shook their heads, knowing it was useless to argue. Besides, it wasn't like anyone could easily take advantage of Quinn. The three of them had shared their plans. Molly glanced over at the fourth bed and asked curiously, Claire, what are you doing for the festival? In a room full of gorgeous, proud, and exceptional women like 205, there should have been a high probability of competition, both overt and subtle. But the presence of the girl in the fourth bed, so coolly, flawlessly beautiful, had completely disarmed the other three. It was impossible to compete with perfection. As a result, the atmosphere in the dorm was surprisingly harmonious. When Molly asked her question, the other two stopped what they were doing and looked over with curiosity. In their minds, though, they already had an answer. Given their roommate's looks and her aloof, keep-your-distance personality, it was nearly impossible to imagine her being interested in any of the guys at Berkeley. Likewise, very few guys would have the courage to ask her out in the first place. And yet, the answer they heard a moment later left all three of them completely stunned. At the desk below the fourth bunk, Claire Sterling sat in her chair, seemingly texting someone on her phone. Hearing her roommate's question, she didn't look up, just answered casually, as if it were nothing. I have plans with someone. The moment the words left her mouth, Molly's romance novel slipped from her shocked fingers and slapped her in the face. The pen in Jade's hand clattered to the floor. And Quinn, who had been applying lipstick, fumbled, smearing a red streak across her cheek. All three girls whipped their heads around, their faces masks of utter disbelief. What? In Building 37, the men's dorm, room 520, Leo's three roommates stared at him with wide eyes. You're going out with your old deskmate? Dylan sucked in a sharp breath. With Bertha Sue. The three of them exchanged glances, a collective shiver running down their spines. After what felt like an eternity of anticipation, August 19th finally arrived. The Lovers' Festival, a campus tradition inspired by the Chinese Qixi Festival. Berkeley's campus was already decorated, the air buzzing with an almost tangible cloud of pink, romantic bubbles. As students left their dorms for the dining halls, they passed through the campus's small commercial district and food street. Every shop had hung banners and posters advertising festival promotions. Strings of pink heart-shaped lights and bouquets of roses were arranged by the doors, amplifying the romantic atmosphere. That evening, in room 205 of Building 16, when Claire Sterling, having changed into a new outfit and done some simple makeup, emerged from the bathroom, her three roommates, Molly, Jade, and Quinn, were completely floored. The visual impact was overwhelming. Even as beauties themselves, they couldn't suppress a surge of awe, even a hint of jealousy. A slim-fitting white blouse with a red ribbon tie, paired with a plaid miniskirt that accentuated her impossibly slender waist. Black over-the-knee socks traced the elegant curves of her long legs, ending in a pair of brown leather loafers. Her silky black hair fell like a waterfall over her shoulders. She was the perfect blend of pure and seductive, radiant and bewitching. It seemed she had even put on a little light makeup for her date, making her already flawless face so breathtakingly beautiful it was hard to breathe. It was no exaggeration to say that Claire Sterling, in this outfit, was the living embodiment of every man's high school dream. The romance novel in Molly's hands fell on her lap. She gaped. My book's heroine. She just walked into reality. Quinn let out a sharp, incredulous breath. Is she trying to make it impossible for any other girl to even exist? Jade surveyed Claire from head to toe, offering a calm, objective assessment. Completely impossible. She walks out the door in that outfit, and it's a massacre. Faced with her roommate's effusive praise, Claire just offered a faint smile, as if it was nothing. You think so? I just threw this on. Of course, she was just being modest. In her past life, as the CEO of a publicly traded company, she had attended countless high-end events and was her own expert stylist and makeup artist. She knew exactly what look to create for an occasion like this. Thinking of the expression on a certain someone's face when he saw her, the corners of her lips curled into a subtle, amused smile. Seeing that smile, her three roommates exchanged glances, their hearts once again reeling. She's insane. Who in the world is she going on a date with? Did his ancestors save the universe to deserve this kind of luck? Stay strong, man. In room 520 of Building 37, Marco, Dylan, and Leon looked at Leo with expressions of deep sympathy and pity as he prepared to leave. They looked like they were sending a warrior off to a hopeless battle. The mood was somber, almost tragic. Marco especially grabbed Leo's hand, pleading with him one last time. Remember, you two are just normal high school deskmates. You just happen to be hanging out today. It has nothing to do with some lover's festival. Don't fall for it. Don't let Bertha get the jump on you and lock this relationship down. Dylan nodded emphatically. Exactly. It's just deskmates grabbing a casual dinner and hanging out. Perfectly reasonable. Leon nodded in agreement. Reasonable. His three strategists drilled the word reasonable into his head, warning him to stick to the script and not give her any other openings. Leo just stood there, a vein throbbing in his temple. Don't worry, I'm more familiar with that line than you guys are. At the east gate of the university, when he saw his deskmate emerge from the tree-lined path, silhouetted against the evening sky, his heart, despite being prepared, took a hard hit. His campus queen deskmate, who had clearly put a lot of effort in her makeup and outfit today, was just unfairly beautiful. She was the absolute template for a campus queen. A little less of her usual cool distance, a little more captivating innocence. Accompanied by the faint, sweet fragrance that drifted from her, it was enough to make his heart race. Calm down, he told himself fiercely. This is a battle. Don't let her intimidate you. Taking a deep breath, Leo composed himself and walked up to her. You're here. She gave a slight nod. Leo steadied his nerves. So what's the plan for today? It's deskmate day, right? He was confident he had already anticipated her script and was ready to play along. Deskmates celebrating deskmate day. Nothing weird about that. But a second later, his deskmate just tilted her head and looked at him like he was an idiot. What's deskmate day? Leo. The guy was completely baffled. Wait, why isn't she following the script? In the next second, a single soft-spoken sentence from her nearly shattered his composure. Your second favor you owe me. Be my boyfriend for a day and celebrate the festival with me. Be my boyfriend for a day. The words exploded in his head like a thunderclap, leaving him stunned and dizzy. Leo was completely lost. Wait. Seeing him frozen in a state of near petrification, Claire's lips curved into an imperceptible smirk before she quickly smoothed her expression back to normal. Her voice was as light and cool as ever. I've never celebrated the Lovers' Festival before. I want to experience it today, as my deskmate, helping me out with something small like this. That's reasonable, right? Is this reasonable at all? The four words exploded in his mind again. Inside Leo's head, a tiny version of himself was once again being trampled by a stampede of 1,000 alpacas. You call this a small favor? You might as well ask for my life. His mind in turmoil, Leo struggled to organize his thoughts. Wait a minute. The favor you mentioned yesterday, wasn't it just to hang out with you for the festival? There was no be my boyfriend for a day clause attached. But his deskmate remained perfectly nonchalant. Is that right? It's more or less the same thing. Anyway, you already agreed. You wouldn't go back on your word, would you? She paused, lifting her beautiful eyes to meet his, a thoughtful look on her face. Or, are you feeling guilty about something? The words hit their mark. He immediately jumped. Who's feeling guilty? Not me. She let out a soft, oh, and spread her hands innocently. I'm not guilty either. So what's the problem? Leo looked at her calm, composed expression. He took a deep breath. She's just a girl. I can't let her get the better of me. Can't back down now. Boyfriend for a day it is. Fine, he declared, slapping his thigh with theatrical finality. Pleased with his attitude, she nodded, then casually extended her hand. Then let's hold hands. Her tone was unbelievably matter-of-fact. Leo was so taken aback by her confidence that he froze for a second. Seeing his hesitation, Claire's lips quirked up again before she quickly reverted to her cool demeanor. Deskmates can hold hands. So it's even more reasonable for a couple to hold hands, right? Leo took another deep breath and nodded calmly. True. Then he reached out and took her delicate hand in his. Little did she know, a hurricane was raging inside him. Holy shit, the deskmate version just got patched. And the reasonable logic has a brand new update. If deskmates could hold hands, then it was only logical for a couple to do so. It's temporary. Just for one day. Stay strong. Don't let her tricks break your focus. Walking hand in hand with his campus queen deskmate down the street outside the East Gate, Leo frantically coached himself. He was a mature soul in his 30s. He'd seen it all. Even though her sudden demand had caught him off guard, he had quickly regained his composure. When it came down to it, being a couple for the festival versus being deskmates for the festival was just a change in title. The substance was pretty much the same. A walk, some window shopping, holding hands, they'd done it all before. He was used to it. Thinking this, Leo instantly felt much calmer. He glanced at the girl beside him. The tiny, cartoon version of himself in his mind puffed out its chest. You think a little trick like that can break my resolve? You've got a long way to go, little miss. Whatever else you've got, bring it on. He didn't expect her to make her next move so quickly. They had been holding hands just as they always did, walking side by side. But suddenly, Leo noticed she had stopped. He paused, confused. What's wrong? His deskmate looked down at their joined hands and raised an eyebrow. This isn't right. We need to change positions. Change positions? What positions? Before Leo could process it, she had already released his hand and recaptured it. But this time their palms pressed together. Her slender, delicate fingers curled around his, weaving through the gaps until they were tightly interlaced. Fingers locked. Intimate, inseparable. The sudden warmth and softness in his hand felt both incredibly real and strangely dreamlike. Once again, he froze. He turned to look at her, a series of giant question marks and exclamation points popping up over his head. Wait, HUH. But meeting his gaze, Claire simply said, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. This is how couples hold hands, isn't it? Even handholding got a new update. Another tidal wave crashed through his mind. He swallowed hard, trying to calm his racing heart, and forced himself to sound composed. Right, this is how you do it. Very precise. What was it like to walk in public with the campus queen, their fingers intertwined? The answer was, Leo had absolutely no time to contemplate such a stupid question. On one hand, his right hand was held tightly by the girl beside him, a soft and intoxicating sensation. On the other hand, he had to endure the countless arrow-like stares from every other student and passerby on the street. It was an ordeal of ice and fire. Even worse, his deskmate's outfit today was, without a doubt, turning heads everywhere. Someone seemed to have recognized her, letting out a soft gasp and pulling out their phone to sneak a picture. Claire, however, seemed perfectly at ease. Don't overthink it. They might not be taking pictures of us. Leo silently looked down at his own phone. In the room, 5:20 a.m. group chat, his roommates were already spamming messages. Marco, holy shit. The goddess queen is outside the East Gate. Dylan, and that damn guy holding her hand is there again. Leon, Leo, where are you? Did you see her? Go punch that guy for me. Marco, wait. The guy in this pic. He looks kind of familiar again. Thankfully, the picture was taken from a distance and was too blurry to make out his face clearly. Leo grabbed Claire's hand. Let's go, he said, and broke into a run. After sprinting for a while, they found a quiet, elegant little bistro just off campus. Inside, the restaurant wasn't too crowded. Finally, they were free from the constant prying glances. They found a table by the window in a corner. Leo let out a sigh of relief. Sitting across from him, Claire surveyed the surroundings, then the table, and a satisfied smile touched her lips. This place isn't bad. Leo, snapping back to reality, also took in the decor. The lighting was soft and dim, creating a romantic ambience. His gaze finally landed on their table, a standard two-person bistro table. Silver plates and cutlery, elegant bronze candelabras with flickering candles. 2 white cloth napkins were folded into heart shapes, and red rose petals were scattered across the tablecloth as decoration. It was the perfect atmosphere for a lover's festival date. Taking the menu, Leo flagged down a waiter and ordered 2 of the festival set meals. The food arrived quickly. Just as Leo was about to calm his nerves and pick up his utensils, his deskmate looked up. "Are we just going to eat like this?" "Leo, how else are we supposed to eat?" Claire, her eyes unwavering, propped her chin on her hands and looked at him. Her expression was perfectly natural. "You feed me." Ignoring his petrified expression, she added matter-of-factly, "Couples eating together on a holiday. It's reasonable for one to feed the other, right?" Meanwhile, in the girl's mind, a tiny, mischievous version of herself was doing a victory dance. This new version of the script, is so useful. Leo took a deep breath, then another. Reasonable. And so, the temporary couple began their meal. The process, however, was fraught with difficulty. "Leo." "What? Don't be nervous." "I'm not nervous." "But your hand is shaking." "It's not shaking. It must be an earthquake." By the time the meal was over, Leo's stomach was barely full, but his energy was completely drained, as if he had just survived a grueling battle. Mainly because feeding his campus queen deskmate was an absolute trial by fire, especially when he was using a fork to bring small pieces of steak and bread to her lips. She would watch him with clear, innocent eyes, her cherry-red lips parting slightly to accept the food. And then, as if savoring the last taste, her tongue would dart out to lightly lick her lips. It almost made his ironclad composure shatter into a million pieces. But it was finally over. Leo let out another huge sigh of relief. Now he finally had a moment to appreciate the restaurant's decor. The ambience was serene, the design elegant. It really was a nice place. More importantly, because it was likely expensive, there weren't many customers, which meant they had finally escaped being stared at and secretly photographed. When they each returned to their dorms, their roommates, in both men's room 520 and women's room 205, quickly noticed that something was off. In room 205, Claire seemed distracted when she walked in the door. When Molly, Jade, and Quinn could no longer contain their curiosity and asked how it went, she just gave a vague reply. "It was nothing. Just had dinner with a friend, went for a walk, and came back." Her tone was light, and her expression gave nothing away. She calmly turned and went into the bathroom, leaving her 3 roommates to stare at each other in confusion. Something felt wrong. Quinn, who had also just returned from a date, suddenly realized something. "Wait a second, Claire's lipstick was a little smudged just now." The words left her mouth in a tone of disbelief. Molly and Jade froze. The 3 of them looked at each other again. A ridiculous, almost unbelievable thought began to form in their minds. Molly gasped. "In no way, right?" Quinn sucked in a breath. "If that's true, the entire School of Business, no, all of Berkeley, would explode, wouldn't it?" Jade tried to remain calm, shaking her head. "Probably not. Didn't she say she just went out for dinner and a walk? She probably just wasn't paying attention while she was eating and messed up her lipstick." The 3 looked at each other again, then, as if coming to a silent agreement, nodded forcefully. "Right, that has to be it." Their tone was firm, but it felt like they were trying to convince themselves more than anything. At the same moment, inside the dorm bathroom, the sound of the faucet running filled the small space. Standing at the sink, Claire splashed her face with water, taking a deep breath to try and clear her head. But when she looked up at the mirror, the scene from the woods near the overlook flashed through her mind again. She subconsciously touched her lips. Instantly, her cheeks burned hot, and even the tips of her ears turned a faint red. Her body felt weak, and she had to grip the sides of the sink to keep herself steady. Under the cover of the rushing water, she muttered to herself in a flustered, embarrassed whisper, "Damn it. Getting so bold all of a sudden. You little jerk." Meanwhile, in the men's room 520, Marco, Dylan, and Leon watched as Leo climbed onto his bed and stared blankly at the ceiling. They exchanged worried glances, then quickly huddled together, whispering in low voices. "Look at him. Seems like he took a big loss tonight. I saw a lipstick on his mouth. Did Bertha force herself on him?" She forced him, and he couldn't fight back." Duh, we're talking about Bertha. Does that name sound like someone you can fight back against?" His 3 roommates reached a unanimous conclusion. They looked back at Leo, their eyes filled with sympathy and pity. Poor Leo. This is just tragic. Leo, however, was oblivious to what his roommates were thinking. Lying on his bed, staring at the ceiling, his mind was replaying the scene from the overlook like a movie. The frantic way they had pulled apart afterward. Awkward and blushing. The clumsy, nonsensical way they tried to change the subject. Finally, the panicked escape as they both fled back to their dorms. But more than any of that, the movie in his mind kept rewinding, uncontrollably freezing on the single frame where he had stumbled forward and fallen against her. If the accidental kiss in the vault karaoke room before summer didn't count, then tonight was their first real kiss when both of them were completely sober. On his bed, Leo subconsciously touched his own mouth. Recalling it, all he could remember was the electrifying sensation of that moment. It was soul-stealing. His deskmate's lips were soft, fragrant, and faintly sweet. The next day, August 20th, Berkeley's week-long freshman orientation began. The new students received their camouflage uniforms, boots, and hats. Once they put them on, the campus was a swarming sea of green and brown, making it nearly impossible to tell anyone apart. Many complained that the uniforms were ugly, but soon no one had the energy to care about that anymore. When the stone-faced drill instructors began barking orders, leading their respective classes onto the field under the blazing sun, the orientation officially began. The sun was scorching, the air so hot it felt like it could catch fire. Class after class of freshmen stood in neat formations on the field, practicing standing at attention, marching in formation, and running laps. The immense physical exertion left everyone so exhausted that by the end of the first day, they could do nothing but collapse onto their dorm beds like lifeless ragdolls. Cries of agony echoed through the dorm buildings. In room 520, Marco and Dylan were already on the verge of collapse by the first night. Leon was a bit stronger, but he was hopelessly uncoordinated and was always a step behind during marching drills. As a result, he received special attention from their instructor and ended up in even worse shape. The three roommates lay on their beds, barely breathing, without even the strength to get up and go to the dining hall. All they could do was trade verbal jabs and offer each other encouragement. Only 6 days left. We just have to tough it out. Leo didn't join their conversation. He lay on his bed, eyes closed, trying to rest. But he couldn't stop himself from picking up his phone again and again to check the screen. A full day had passed since last night. His campus queen deskmate hadn't sent him a single message. Day 2 of orientation. The high-intensity training continued. It was the same monotonous cycle of standing at attention, marching, and running laps. The freshmen's energy was quickly depleted under the hot sun, and they fell asleep the moment they got back to their dorms. And that day, there was still no message from his deskmate. Feeling a bit guilty himself, he had typed out a text several times, but ended up deleting it each time. By the third day, many students' bodies were starting to give out. Some even suffered from heat stroke and were sent to the infirmary. Leo's body could still handle it, but while marching, his mind drifted to his deskmate. He lost focus, fell out of step, and was singled out by the instructor for a brutal round of extra drills. After that punishment, combined with the ill-fitting orientation boots, his feet were covered in painful blisters. He finally made it through the day's training. As he was limping back to his dorm, a familiar, cool, and pleasant voice called out to him. Leo. Hearing the voice behind him, Leo instantly recognized it as his deskmate. He turned around, his mind racing to figure out what to say. But the moment he saw her, he froze. For the past 2 days, Leo had rehearsed countless opening lines in his head, trying to figure out how to explain things the next time he saw his deskmate. He had agonized over the perfect first sentence. But at this moment, turning to see her standing there, he froze, and the words that came out were not what he'd planned. What happened to you? Standing before him was the familiar Clare Sterling. Having finished orientation for the day, she must have already gone back to her dorm. She had taken off the thick, stuffy camouflage jacket and was wearing just a short-sleeved camo t-shirt with a pair of cool denim shorts, revealing a pair of long, pale legs that were dangerously distracting. To shield herself from the sun, she was still wearing the pink, emblazoned baseball cap they had bought during the festival, her hair tied back in a jaunty ponytail. What made Leo stare in surprise was the black face mask she was wearing, completely obscuring her exquisite features. Why is she wearing a mask in this heat? A question mark popped up over his head. Hearing his question, Claire explained simply, allergies. It doesn't look good, so I'm covering it. Leo then learned the truth. It was likely caused by pollen from wildflowers on campus. The night of the festival, after they left the woods near the overlook, her allergies had flared up. It wasn't just her face. She held out her arm for him to see. Sure enough, there were faint red patches on her slender, pale skin. It wasn't severe, but it was enough to make him feel a pang of sympathy. In that moment, Leo completely forgot about the awkwardness and embarrassment from their intimate encounter. Looking at her arm, his expression filled with concern. Have you been to the campus health center? She nodded, her voice slightly muffled by the mask, but she seemed to be in good spirits. I saw a doctor. They said it's nothing serious. Just wear a mask to block the pollen and take some medicine they prescribed. It should clear up in a few days. Leo nodded, feeling a bit relieved, but he was still puzzled. You were fine when you first got to campus a few days ago. Why the sudden reaction? Claire shook her head. I don't know, but the doctor said it might be because of the woods near the overlook. Apparently, the wildflowers there have irritating pollen, and a lot of students get allergies in the summer. Mine is just a bit more severe. Oh, I see, Leo said, understanding dawning on him. Suddenly, his voice trailed off. Their eyes met, and both of them couldn't help but remember what had happened in those very woods on the night of the festival. The atmosphere quietly shifted, becoming charged with an unspoken intimacy. Even though she was wearing a mask, a blush seemed to creep up her face. Leo's own expression became unnatural, his voice laced with guilt. Well, if you're okay, I'll get going. He tried to turn and run, but in his haste he put weight on his foot wrong, aggravating a blister. He sucked a sharp breath, nearly stumbling. Quickly, Claire reached out and steadied him. Now, it was her turn to frown with concern. What's wrong? Did you twist it? Their skin touched again, and the memory of that night flashed through his mind, sending another jolt through him. Leo quickly took 2 steps back, trying to act casual. It's nothing. The instructor was just pushing us too hard, and these boots don't fit right. Just some blisters. They'll be fine in a couple of days. Claire's expression cleared with understanding. She looked down at his boots, then frowned. The orientation boots, especially the ones for guys, were stiff and ill-fitting. With such high-intensity training, blisters were almost inevitable. She knew several guys in her own class were complaining about the same thing. After a moment of thought, an idea seemed to come to her. She looked at Leo and said, "Wait here for a second." Then she hurried off, leaving him standing there, confused, wondering where she was going. He soon had his answer. They weren't far from the women's dorms, and it wasn't long before he saw her jogging back. She seemed to have made a quick trip to her room, and she was now holding a small package. She walked up to him and handed it over. Here. Leo took it, still protesting. It's fine, I have icy hot and Tiger Balm in my room. The next second, he looked down at the package in his hands. The large words printed on the wrapping were impossible to miss. Always. Leo's hand shot out to cover the package. He looked up at her dumbfounded. But his deskmate's expression was perfectly serene. I heard from some upperclassmen. Put these in your boots. It'll stop them from rubbing. Claire left, leaving Leo standing there with the pack of Always pads. He had initially tried to refuse her kindness, protesting with all his might. But his resistance crumbled when she frowned at him and said 2 simple, coolly delivered words. Listen to me. Even with the hat and mask hiding most of her face, those 2 words carried an authority that could not be denied. In the end, Leo could only stuff her kindness into his pocket and sneak back to his dorm like a thief. The next morning, the bugle call blared from the campus speakers, signaling the start of a new day of orientation. The guys in room 520 dragged themselves out of bed, groaning and sighing as they got dressed. Leo sat at his desk, staring at the ridiculously stiff boots. After a long moment of internal debate, he made up his mind. While his roommates weren't looking, he stealthily slipped a pad into each boot. That morning, the training began again, standing at attention, marching, running. To his surprise, Leo discovered that with the pads in his boots, they were significantly more comfortable. No more rubbing. At the end of the day, while his classmates and roommates were clutching their feet and groaning in pain, he felt refreshed and fine, aside from the slight discomfort from his existing blisters. It wasn't just the orientation. After yesterday's incident, the awkwardness that had settled between him and his deskmate seemed to have vanished. After training ended that day, Leo texted her to report on the effectiveness of the Always pads. She immediately called him back. Leo went out to the balcony to take the call. On the other end, his deskmate happened to be on her dorm balcony as well. After hearing his report on the pads, a hint of laughter entered her voice. As long as they work. If you need more, just let me know. Leo, I'm good. They chatted casually for a few more minutes, their rapport clearly back to normal. Just then, the door to his room opened. Marco, Dylan, and Leon burst in, full of excitement. Leo! Marco yelled as he entered. Good news! We're having a mixer with the girls from room 306 in our class tonight. And Zoe and Renee specifically said you have to come. Marco's voice was loud enough for Claire to hear clearly on the other end of the line. Mixer, with the girls from his class, and they specifically requested little Leo to be there. In that instant, on the balcony of room 205, the girl leaning against the railing narrowed her eyes. The whole thing had started simply enough. On August 18th, during the first class meeting for the advertising majors, the advisor, Alex, had mentioned the upcoming Lovers Festival. From the back, Marco had jokingly yelled, "Does that come with a girlfriend assignment?" which had earned a chorus of whoops from the guys and blushing giggles from the girls. But even then, the guys and girls in the class were already subtly checking each other out. It wasn't just Marco who had spotted a few pretty girls in the 6 out of 10 range. Leo's handsome face had also caught the attention of many of the girls, making them take a second look. Over the next few days of orientation, the classmates trained together and hung out in small groups during breaks. They sat next to each other during the nightly ethics seminars. There were plenty of opportunities to interact. The humid, hot air of a college campus in summer, scented with wildflowers, easily fostered budding crushes and secret thoughts. A few of the more attractive girls in the class began to ask around about Leo, some more subtly than others. The bolder ones would find excuses to strike up a conversation with him. While no one had asked for his number directly yet, several girls had already added him as a friend in the class group chat. Even the mixer Marco had mentioned was only enthusiastically accepted by the girls' dorm after they heard Leo was in room 520. At that moment, Marco and the others, who had just entered the room, hadn't noticed Leo on the phone. Dylan excitedly shouted towards the balcony. "Did you hear that, Leo? Marco's right. Zoe and Renee are definitely into you. You saw how they brought you water during the breaks these past few days. Go for it, man. Win one of them over. Either one would be better than Bertha, right?" On the other end of the line, Claire froze for a second, confused. Bertha? His deskmate's single question nearly gave him a heart attack. He coughed violently. Cough, cough. "It's nothing. You misheard. They're just messing around." Claire didn't press the issue, her attention quickly shifting back to more important matters. "2 girls in your class are into you, and they're bringing you water?" The girl holding the phone leaned against her balcony railing, her eyes narrowing as a dangerous light began to gleam within them. "Someone is quite popular." Leo, on the other end, completely missed the chill in her voice. He just laughed it off. "My roommates are just exaggerating. Besides, I already ate tonight, and I'm too tired. I'm not going with them." The girl on the other end let out a soft "oh." Leo, however, remembered something else. "By the way, are your allergies any better? Are you taking the medicine the doctor gave you? Don't forget." That small show of concern managed to soften the icy expression that had been forming on Claire's face. This time, she gave a gentle, "A little better, but it'll probably take a few more days to fully recover." Leo felt relieved to hear that. He reminded her to take care of herself a couple more times before hanging up. On the balcony of room 205, building 37, the girl with the innocent ponytail put down her phone. She rested her hands on the railing and looked up at the evening sky, seemingly admiring the sunset. The black mask she wore hid most of her face, making her expression unreadable, but a soft, self-assured murmur could be heard. "Zoe and Renee, bringing him water?" Just then, the dorm room door opened. The other 3 girls from 205 returned from the campus convenience store, laden with snacks and drinks. Molly looked up and saw Claire on the balcony, about to call out cheerfully, "Claire, we're back. We got you some chips." Suddenly, she shivered. "Huh, why is it so chilly in here?" The observant Jade noticed something was off with her roommate on the balcony. "Claire, what's wrong? Are you okay?" From the balcony, the girl replied lightly, "I'm fine." Her tone was calm and casual. But at that same moment, deep within her mind, a tiny, chibi version of herself, after months of peace, was once again strapping on armor, expressionless, and mounting a warhorse. Suddenly, a murderous aura erupted. "Tomorrow, we ride for war." The 5th day of orientation. A full morning of drills had once again left the students exhausted. It wasn't even lunchtime yet, but no one had the energy to go back to their dorms. They all just collapsed onto the grass in the shade at the edge of the field. The training fields were separated by department. On Field 2, the School of Business had finished their morning session a little early. The girls from room 205 took off their hats, fanning their faces, planning to head to the convenience store for a cold drink. "Claire? Claire!" Molly looked around, searching for her suddenly vanished roommate. Where'd she go? Quinn was also puzzled. She was right here a second ago. How did she disappear? Jade frowned, thinking. Her voice was uncertain. "I think I saw her, heading toward Field 1. Meanwhile, on Field 1, the freshmen from the School of Humanities and Social Sciences were gathered in the shade, greedily enjoying the rare moment of coolness. The guys from room 520 were sitting together. Marco sidled up to Leo, nudging him with an elbow and wiggling his eyebrows. "Leo, check it out." He gestured with his chin toward the left. Leo followed his gaze. Under another patch of shade, not far away, the girls from the advertising class were resting. A few of them were huddled together, whispering secrets. Every so often, their eyes would dart over to the guy's side. One bold girl even pointed a finger in Leo's direction. She seemed to say something that caused a ripple of giggles and teasing among her friends. Two of them, who were quite pretty, were blushing but still looked boldly in their direction, their gazes meeting Leo's. Dylan was even more excited than if it were happening to him. "Dude, it's Zoe and Renee again. They are so into you, man." The observant Leon noticed a detail. "Look, I think they're going to buy drinks again. I bet one is for you." Just as Leon predicted, two girls from the group, Zoe Chu and Renee Ruan, stood up and started walking towards the convenience store. Before leaving, Zoe, the more outgoing of the two, even turned to look at Leo and gave him a bold wink, a clear sign of flirtation. Watching the two beauties walk away, Marco, Dylan, and Leon were green with envy. "Damn, Leo, your luck with women is insane. Two girls are fighting to buy you a drink. I'll buy you breakfast for a week if you let me borrow some of that luck." Just then, the sound of footsteps approached. Leo subconsciously looked up and froze. His three roommates, who had been laughing and teasing him, turned their heads in confusion, following his gaze. Walking towards them was a girl. She wore a pink baseball cap and a neat, clean ponytail. The camouflage uniform couldn't hide her slender, graceful figure. Even with a black mask covering most of her face, her refined and elegant aura was unmistakable, along with a subtle and dangerous hint of murderous intent. Even though she was almost completely covered up, the figure and aura of Northwood High's former ice queen were impossible to hide. Some people are just like that. No matter how much they try to blend in, they still stand out in a crowd. As she walked across the rest area for the School of Humanities, students from every class couldn't help but look up, their gazes drawn to her. A ripple of murmurs and whispers followed her. "Who's that? Doesn't look like she's from our school. Wow, her posture is amazing, and her skin is so pale. Her whole vibe is just different. I bet she's a total knockout." Over where the guys from room 520 were sitting, "Definitely a knockout," Marco declared with absolute certainty, his eyes glued to the approaching figure. "Trust me, professional judgment. Look at that skin, that figure, that aura. Even with the hat and mask, I'd give her an 8 out of 10. With fundamentals that strong. The face under that mask has to be incredible. She's got to be the queen of some department." Leon suddenly got nervous. "Guys, look, I think she's coming this way." Just as the guys were feeling a mix of tension, excitement, and anticipation, the person sitting next to them stood up. "Huh." The three roommates turned to look at Leo in confusion. The next moment, they watched dumbfounded as he walked up to the girl. "What are you doing here?" His tone was natural and familiar, as if they knew each other well. The girl had reached him by now. Her expression was hidden by the mask, but she just raised an eyebrow. "Can't I be here?" That simple exchange confirmed their familiar relationship. The three guys from 520 shot up from the ground and rushed over. Marco's eyes were fixed on the masked girl, unable to look away. "Leo, this is—" Leo scratched his head. "Oh, she's—" He was struggling to find the right words to introduce her, but the girl beside him spoke first. She turned to the three roommates, her eyes crinkling under the baseball cap, as if she were smiling. "Hi, guys. I'm Leo's high school deskmate." Her voice, muffled by the mask, was still pleasant and melodic. But this time, the three guys from 520 weren't paying attention to her voice. The moment they heard her introduction, they went blank. "What? High school deskmate? You're Bertha?" Now, it was Claire's turn to be baffled. Under the brim of her cap, her clear, bright eyes filled with a rare, profound confusion. "B.E.R. The—" In an instant, Leo's scalp went numb. He quickly jumped in to change the subject. "Right, these are my roommates. Marco, Dylan, and Leon." He frantically shot them a look. For once, the three of them were quick on the uptake. Though they couldn't guess the real reason for Leo's panic, they figured calling her Bertha to her face probably wasn't the best idea. So Marco, the quickest thinker, instantly corrected himself, calling out, "Hey, Ms. Sue." Although Claire was still confused, she mercifully didn't press the issue. As they started talking, the atmosphere became much more relaxed. Marco and the others had initially been nervous, assuming she was some department beauty, but as soon as they heard she was Leo's high school deskmate, Bertha, all their tension vanished. Especially since she was so friendly and easygoing, they felt even more at ease. Even Dylan, who usually went mute within a 10-foot radius of any girl, felt no pressure talking to Bertha Sue. He was surprisingly talkative. But as the three of them chatted and laughed with Clare, they secretly sized her up, marveling at the discovery. They never would have guessed. They had imagined Leo's brilliant high school deskmate to be some brawny, Amazon-like woman. But seeing her in person, her figure and aura were so stunning, they had almost mistaken her for a great beauty. At this thought, their gazes discreetly swept over the mask on her face, and everything clicked. The rugged name, Bertha Sue, combined with their preconceived notions, led them to an obvious conclusion. She must be wearing the mask because she wasn't comfortable showing her face. It just goes to show, fate is fair. It gave Bertha such a perfect body and aura, but it took away her beauty. What a shame. Though they felt a sense of pity, they naturally wouldn't bring up such a sore subject. Instead, their attitude towards her became even more sincere and enthusiastic. As for Clare, although she was puzzled by the strange looks of pity she was getting from Leo's roommates, she cheerfully held up the plastic bag she was carrying. She had bought several cold drinks from the convenience store and handed them out one by one. The last bottle she placed in Leo's hand. The three guys from 520 were overjoyed, thanking her profusely. Leo, taking the soda, looked at her suspiciously. "You bought these just for us?" Claire's expression was nonchalant. "Not really. I was just passing by and thought of you, so I figured I'd stop by." As she spoke, she casually glanced to her left. Just then, Zoe and Renee from the advertising class were walking back from the convenience store with drinks in their hands. Claire's eyes narrowed slightly. She turned back to Leo as if she had just noticed something. "You're sweating." Before he could react, she had already pulled a tissue from her pocket and was gently dabbing at his temple. The gesture was intimate and natural, filled with an ambiguous warmth. This scene was witnessed by the three roommates. It was also seen by Zoe and Renee, who had been excitedly walking over. The two advertising majors froze. In their line of sight, the girl carefully wiping sweat from Leo's brow had a slender, graceful figure. Even with a mask and a baseball cap, she exuded an undeniable elegance. If she's this striking even while covered up, what must she look like underneath? For a moment, both girls felt a wave of self-doubt and defeat, a flicker of an urge to retreat. Zoe, the bolder of the two, was still unwilling to give up. She bit her lip, about to press forward. But in the next second, the girl wiping his brow seemed to sense her, turning her head to look over. Their eyes met in midair. In that single glance, the girl's eyes became sharp and cold, her gaze filled with a chilling, imperious authority. The courage Zoe had just mustered was instantly shattered, leaving nothing behind. She stumbled back 2 steps, any other thoughts completely vanishing from her mind. Because the message conveyed in that single look was crystal clear, simple and domineering, leaving no room for argument. "This man is mine. Don't touch." For some reason, after that afternoon's incident, the girls in the advertising class who had been so enthusiastic about Leo suddenly went quiet. And so for the next few days of orientation, the person who brought Leo water and drinks was, inexplicably but logically, the masked girl in the baseball cap. According to her, she just happened to be passing by each time and decided to bring some refreshments on a whim. This explanation, bought and paid for with daily snacks and drinks, was met with vigorous, unprincipled nods of agreement from the other 3 residents of room 520. Reasonable. In the evenings after the ethics seminars ended, she would happen to walk by their classroom, coincidentally run into the 4 of them, and after a casual greeting, would fall in a step beside Leo. As the group walked towards the dorms, she would naturally extend her hand, and Leo would subconsciously take it, just like they used in high school when they walked from the classroom to the underground bike storage every night. This natural hand-holding was observed by the other 3 roommates with strange, knowing looks. They exchanged frantic glances. "See? Bertha's got moves. She's a genius, after all. She's got Leo completely wrapped around her finger." Marco even teased them out loud. "Aren't you two just deskmates? Why are deskmates holding hands?" Dylan nodded eagerly, joining in. "Yeah, isn't that a little too close?" Ever since discovering that the masked Bertha didn't trigger his usual speech-locking anxiety around girls, Dylan had become unusually active in conversations. Faced with the roommate's good-natured teasing, Claire's expression remained hidden behind her mask. She just raised an eyebrow and replied coolly, "Holding hands is a tradition at our high school, Northwood High." Across the country, Northwood High alumni were collectively scratching their heads in confusion. The 3 guys from 520 were equally baffled. "Wait, what? Don't be ridiculous. Bertha, you think we didn't go to high school?" But the guy standing next to her nodded with a righteous expression. "It's true. Then he looked at his 3 roommates and asked without a hint of shame, "Your schools didn't do that?" Marco, Dylan, and Leon all shook their heads vigorously. Leo and Claire exchanged a look. They came to a mutual, unspoken conclusion that it must be a problem with your schools. After just a few days of hanging out, Claire had quickly become friends with Leo's 3 roommates. The guys from 520 had a very high opinion of her, and the more they admired her, the more they felt sorry for her. Every time Claire came to deliver drinks during orientation breaks, they would look at the mask covering her face and the faint red patches on her arms, and later, when they discussed it in private, they couldn't help but sigh. Bertha. Such a shame. The 3 of them are good guys. They knew they shouldn't judge a girl by her looks, and now that they were friends with her, they felt an even stronger conviction to stand by her side. So, on the second-to-last evening of orientation, when she happened to stop by with drinks, the trio from room 520, led by Marco, made a solemn declaration. "Don't worry. From now on, our dorm is officially Team U and Leo. All other girls can step aside." Leon nodded fiercely. "Same here." Hearing this, a smile formed under Claire's mask. She thought Leo's roommates were pretty decent guys. But in the next second, the conversation took a strange, unexpected turn. Marco looked at Claire with utmost sincerity. "Bertha, don't feel bad about yourself. No matter what, in our hearts, you're the most beautiful." Claire froze. Leo, who was drinking water, choked and started coughing, desperately trying to intervene. But it was too late. Dylan had already picked up the thread, his voice full of emotion. "He's right. Bertha, our names are given by our parents, our looks by fate. Even if your name is Bertha Sue and you have some regrets about your appearance, here in room 520, you're the #1 campus queen of Berkeley. Not even that goddess from the School of Business, Claire Sterling, can compare to you." The air went still for a moment. Claire was completely dumbfounded. A series of giant question marks slowly materialized over her head. There were so many things wrong with that statement, she didn't even know where to begin. But first, the most important point. Claire slowly turned her head to look at the certain someone who, sensing disaster, was already preparing to flee. Her eyes narrowed, a dangerous, murderous glint appearing within them. "Bertha. Sue. The secret was finally out. Claire didn't expose him in front of his roommates. But that night, during their phone call, faced with her cold, emotionless interrogation, Leo's defenses crumbled, and he confessed everything. After hearing his reasons for lying, Claire accepted his explanation, but the name Bertha Sue still made her grind her teeth. It wasn't fair. She immediately declared, coldly, that he would have to pay a price. And so, from that night on, a certain someone received a new name, Leo Hammer Wallace. Time flew by. The 7 days of orientation were tough, but sweating it out on the field, they had unknowingly reached the end. On the final evening, on the campus athletic field, the freshmen from each class, led by their instructors, sat in large circles. With their farewell approaching, the normally strict instructors had become friendly and fun, organizing games for the students. Even simple games like duck, duck, goose, and musical chairs had everyone roaring with laughter. On the field at night, accompanied by the chirping of cicadas, cheers and laughter erupted periodically. Finally, the advertising class's instructor suggested a talent show. The bold and confident students eagerly volunteered. Over the phone, Leo, standing on the balcony of room 520, couldn't see the expression on Claire's face on her balcony in room 205. And he certainly couldn't have imagined that when she first said his name, though it sounded cool and emotionless. The look on her face had suddenly become bewitchingly seductive. So a moment later, when that breathy, soul-stealing word came from the balcony of room 205, the impact was devastating. Just then, the door to room 205 opened. The adorable Molly walked in, happily hugging a bag of snacks. She was just in time to hear the heart-stoppingly seductive and delicate word drift in from the balcony. Molly froze solid. The snacks slipped from her hands and scattered across the floor. Snapping back to reality, she forced herself to remain calm, hypnotizing herself. "I must have opened the door wrong. I must have opened the door wrong," she mumbled, slowly backing out of the room and closing the door behind her. On the other end of the line, Leo's mind was reeling, his composure nearly shattered. How could he possibly think about taking advantage of the situation? Anyone else hearing that word would have gladly given their life for her. In the end, he obediently complied. Standing on his balcony, he quietly sang another rendition of Oasis's Wonderwall into his phone. After the song, the girl on the other end seemed satisfied. "Not bad," she said. Then, as if remembering something, she added coolly, "By the way, from now on, if you're going to sing, you have to sing for me first." Leo was taken aback. A giant question mark appeared over his head. What? The line went silent for a moment. Then, before a sense of dread could form in his mind, he heard her voice, suddenly seductive and sweet again, cooing into the phone. Leo, baby, pretty please. In an instant, he was utterly defeated, surrendering completely. At the same time, outside the door of room 205, Molly, having taken 3 deep breaths and mentally prepared herself, was pushing the door open again. She was just in time to clearly and distinctly hear her roommate's voice from the balcony. Molly froze on the spot, petrified. After a long moment, the cute girl, her eyes wide with shock, began backing out of the room again. I must be opening it wrong. Something is definitely wrong. Orientation was over, but some things were just getting started. Leo's guitar performance on the field the previous night had attracted a lot of attention. Even girls from other departments who had heard his rendition of Wonderwall and caught a glimpse of his handsome face through the crowd had started to get ideas. They began asking around through various connections, trying to get his contact information. As for the girls in his own advertising class, that went without saying. Girls like Zoe Chu and Renee Ruan, the 2 reigning beauties of their class, had already been interested in him since the first class meeting, even bringing him water. Although they had been intimidated by the appearance of the masked girl a few days prior, they had later done some discreet digging. They found out her name was supposedly Bertha Sue, and no one in the School of Business had ever heard of a beauty by that name. Combined with the fact that she always wore a hat and mask, hiding her face completely, they came to a logical conclusion. Her face probably didn't live up to her stunning figure. With that, their confidence returned, and they started to get restless again. News of all this soon reached Claire's ears. It wasn't from Leo, of course. With his straightforward, oblivious personality, he probably hadn't even noticed. In fact, over the past few days, the former CEO had employed a few simple tactics and had already turned the other 3 members of room 520 into her loyal, die-hard spies. Anytime there was the slightest whisper of gossip related to Leo, the 3 of them would report it to her immediately. They gave her detailed intelligence on Zoe and Renee's every move, as well as information on girls from other departments, leaving no stone unturned. After their reports, they would pound their chests and swear their allegiance to Bertha. Don't worry, Bertha. Those girls might be pretty, but they've got nothing on you. A beautiful soul is what matters most. We are definitely on your side. Even if that ice queen from your department, Clare Sterling, showed up, she wouldn't stand a chance against you. Though it was a touching display of loyalty, the words made Claire's lips twitch, and a fresh wave of annoyance toward a certain someone bubbled up. A beautiful soul? The tiny chibi version of herself in her mind was about to flip a table in fury. Since when is a beautiful soul my only good quality? Taking a deep breath, Claire calmed herself. None of that mattered. Once the allergies on her face cleared up, none of it would be a problem. At that thought, her eyes narrowed, a faint murderous aura emanating from her. When the time came, whether it was Leo's classmates or those other vixens from the School of Humanities, in front of her the one true queen, they would all be crushed into dust. According to the campus doctor, her allergies would be gone in a few more days. That night in room 205, as the girls were chatting, Molly suddenly remembered something. Oh, by the way, isn't the freshman welcome gala in a few days? At the same moment, in room 520, their advisor, Alex, made a surprise visit. He was looking for Leo. After hearing the reason for his visit, Leo's face was a mask of surprise. The freshman welcome gala? You want me to sing? Berkeley's freshman orientation ended on a Wednesday. By tradition, after orientation, each school held its own freshman welcome gala. The gala for the School of Humanities and Social Sciences was scheduled for that weekend. The school administration had delegated the task, requiring each freshman class to contribute at least one performance. Alex had been stressing about where to start, as he barely knew his students' talents yet. But he soon heard about Leo's guitar performance on the field, which had received overwhelmingly positive feedback and strong recommendations from many students. Naturally, he had come to recruit his man. Leo wasn't particularly interested in being in the spotlight, but he couldn't fend off his advisor's persistent pleading. Finally, Alex dropped the formal advisor act, slung an arm around Leo's shoulders, and whispered a tempting offer. Help your big bro Alex out this one time, and when it comes to attendance, getting excused from class, and stuff like that, we could be flexible. Before Leo could even react, the other 3 guys in room 520 lit up. The situation instantly changed. It was now 3 roommates and 1 advisor all ganging up on him. In the end, Leo reluctantly agreed. The School of Humanities Welcome Gala was organized by the Student Union's Arts Department. The day after agreeing to perform, Leo went to the arts department's activity room to report in. When he arrived, a good number of people had already gathered. Some were sophomores and juniors from the department, while others were freshmen from various majors who had also been tasked with performing. Leo glanced around. It was no wonder they called it the arts department. It was literally teeming with beauties. Everywhere he looked, he saw pretty girls in the 6 or 7 out of 10 range. The room was a lively, eye-catching scene of chatter and laughter. Among them, a certain familiar face with the surname Shaw was particularly conspicuous. Seeing his roommate, who had seemingly appeared out of nowhere, Leo was confused. "What are you doing here?" Marco puffed out his chest righteously. "What kind of question is that? You think I'd miss out on something this good? It's the arts department. It's full of girls. Where the beauties are, I am." It turned out that while Marco hadn't signed up to perform, he had already schmoozed his way into the good graces of the upperclassmen in the arts department and secured a spot as a freshman officer. He was helping with logistics for the gala. As they were talking, a senior with short hair walked over. She was cute, but her real strength was her capable and confident aura. She seemed to know Marco well, greeting him before her eyes landed on Leo. "And who's this?" Marco eagerly made the introduction. "Cheryl, this is my roommate, Leo. He's our class's performer. The guy's an amazing singer." When it came to hyping up his roommate, Marco didn't hold back. His voice boomed through the activity room, loud enough for everyone to hear. Instantly, dozens of eyes, including those of many girls from the arts department, turned to look at Leo, sizing him up with curiosity. Their eyes lit up. "So that's Leo? The one who played guitar and sang on the field last night. He really is kind of cute." Hearing Marco's introduction, the short-haired upperclassman's eyes also brightened. She looked at Leo. "So you're Leo?" Then she extended a hand. "I'm Cheryl Chun, head of the arts department, and also an advertising major, so I'm your senior. You can call me Cheryl, just like Marco does." With Cheryl's explanation, Leo quickly got the rundown on the gala. There would be 15 to 17 acts, including songs, dances, instrumental performances, comedy skits, and even magic. It was a diverse lineup. The School of Humanities was clearly full of talent. "I heard about your performance on the field last night," Cheryl said, clapping him on the shoulder with a friendly smile. "A lot of people were raving about it. You'd better bring your A game for the gala. An event like this is the perfect chance to show off. You could get a ton of female fans." She paused, then gave him a mischievous wink. "Or, if you see any girl in our department you like, just let me know secretly. Your big sis Cheryl could help play matchmaker, you know." Before Leo could reply, Marco's eyes lit up, and he shamelessly sidled over. "Don't worry about him, Cheryl. This guy's already taken. But I'm single. How about you introduce me to someone? I'm not picky. That freshman Lily Lou seems pretty nice." A second later, Cheryl rapped him on the head. "Lily Lou? In your dreams. Go to your job." That night, Leo was on the phone with his deskmate, telling her about his upcoming performance at the gala. But it was clear that her focus was elsewhere. The arts department? Lots of pretty girls. On the other end of the line, Claire's eyes had already narrowed. "And a senior offered to set you up with someone?" The clueless guy, completely unaware of the impending danger, was still cheerfully nodding and admitting it. "Yeah, Cheryl's really nice. But hey, it just goes to show how charming I am, haha." He changed the subject. "But I turned her down. I'm not interested in that stuff. I'm just doing Alex a favor." Marco, on the other hand, was practically drooling. "I told Cheryl to pass the opportunity on to him." Leo had no idea that those casual words had just saved him from disaster. On the other end of the phone, Claire's expression softened slightly. After a moment of thought, she spoke again, her voice cool. "Leo, yeah. Do you remember what I told you in high school?" "High school? What did you say?" "That girls you don't know are dangerous. And boys your age are easily fooled." "Huh. So, if you notice any girl showing interest in you, you were to firmly reject her and report to me immediately."